We have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Johnstone?
Here.
Councilmember Riggs?
Here.
Councilmember Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember Goodson? Here. Councilmember Weber?
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pittman?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be going into closed session, but before that, do we have any comment cards for a closed session?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. We have one from the cameraman.
Welcome.
Here, I'll do it.
I'm so used to the board. There manually.
Here you go.
There we go. Good evening, Oroville City Council. Keep my comments to closed session tonight. Well, we're not all idiots here. We know one of those items is going to be about me in closed session tonight. That's why I'm here. I just wanted to touch on a few points. Pretty much, I think we've reached close to, a closing point in this chapter of San Zone. I know our, he's not here right now, but our deputy chief, potentially soon to be police chief, was wanting to go in new leadership. And I think this is one of those remaining stains that we need to take the Tide stick and buff out and get rid of. Just wanted to point out that, in one of their latest filings, they had the audacity to say that I abandoned my car. But when you look at the video, who really abandoned their vehicle? San Zone. He abandoned a vehicle in the middle of the road. People had to drive past his car, not mine. He abandoned a vehicle with the doors open, where I guess they're concerned because the door's open. I guess I'm going to go in there and steal his computer or radio or get a hold of the block gun or something I shouldn't in there. But he left that open for anybody to wander on by, but I still managed to park, lock, and secure my vehicle, but somehow I abandoned it. One of those findings was, measuring from a curb, waste of taxpayer money. But I don't know if it was a waste of taxpayer money because the receipt for this expert to come up and measure the curb, there was no records found. So I highly doubt a man came all the way from Stockton just to measure a curb out of the kindness of his heart. See, and they brung up some things that apparently I come to City Hall and I cause problems next door to the point that I disrupt service. Now, I've been here going on, I think, 4 or 5 years now, coming to City Hall, and I know there's been some disagreements, but I don't think I could ever recall a point where my actions physically disrupted the service of City Hall to any point that the police were ever called on me at City Hall. So that's just a blatant lie. And, that's the whole thing. He's a terrible liar. He's on the Brady list. That's why, because he's a terrible liar. There's a couple more things, but, almost out of time. But I would like to point out one thing. During his deposition, he said that something along the lines that this occurred 7 years ago. And I haven't even been in Oroville from, I think, the end of 2018, so barely 6 years. So I don't know how something I can have an encounter with him 7 years ago when I haven't even lived 7 years in a county. And the incident in question happened, I think, now 3 years ago from 21.
That's all I have for submitted public comment,
All right,
Mr.
we'll
Mayor.
go to closed session now. Thank you all.
Yeah, so when they come back, we'll take the non-agenda item.
Oh, what happened?
What is this one?
You're gonna do the corrections right here, Brian, like after the pledge, before the adoption.
Yeah, before I'll do one and then adjust.
Away. Looks like we're good to go. We'll call the meeting to order, please. Welcome to you all in the audience tonight. Have the attorney give us a report from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action. Direction was given to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Just for the detail of the room, if you need to, when you came in, that's the entrance, and then there's also an exit over here. If we have to leave the room, we would ask you all to go out to the parking lot so we can account for everyone. And we're going to give the officer to clear the room, Mr. Bell. Yeah. If we have to clear the room for an earthquake or something like that, just as a safety message. So, Pledge of Allegiance. We have some visitors. Welcome, folks.
Hello, we're back. I'm Jennifer Cooper, and these are my students from Ophir Elementary School.
My name is Chevy O'Reilly. Thank you for inviting us to lead your meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We are students from Ophir School. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance helps from a connection to our country, the United States of America.
My name is Bella. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. We honor the flag and everything it represents. We are a country with diverse populations. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance instills a sense of pride for all people.
My name is Ava Blair. We say the Pledge of Allegiance to start our day at school, to begin official meetings or ceremonies, and we honor the flag at special events like ball games. We would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We stand.
Salute.
Thank you, kids. Come on up. I got a little recognition for you. Ava Blair? Hi. Arabella? Did I say that right? Arabella? Arabella. Thank you. And Sherry. Is it Sherry? Chevy. Chevy. Thank you, Shelly. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You just dropped. There you go.
Thanks, kids.
Thank you.
Next item is up for adoption of agenda.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we had one correction.
Oh, okay.
On the consent. The item number 1, General Plan Amendment GPA 24-01 and the Zoning Code Amendment. The actions, everything is correct in the packet, but the action items, for whatever reason, did not carry over correctly in our system. So the action should read, because this is the second reading, this was presented to you folks at the last council meeting. It should read, the first action should be waive the second reading and introduce by title only ordinance number 1882, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville approving zoning code amendment ZC 24-03 to change the land use designation of 2 parcels on Robinson Street to mixed use and the zoning to downtown mixed use in associated APNs. And then also adopt resolution number 9213, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oroville, California, adopting the general plan amendment GPA 24-01 for the 2 parcels. And again, everything is correct in the staff report. It just didn't carry over, so on the agenda, this doesn't read correctly. And that's for item number 1 on the consent.
Thank you. Do we have any council members' issues with the consent agenda at all? With that, I'd entertain a motion for consent.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar with the amendment given by City Administrator Brian Rain.
Call the roll, please.
I have no.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I'm like, where am I?
Next item is regular business. Item number 7, the memorandum of understanding with Butte County Behavioral Health for the Sobering Center participation, associated budget adjustments, and operation or creation of Fund 121 for tracking opioid settlement dollars.
You know, Mr. Mayor, we have one proclamation prior to that.
Oh, you are correct. I'm sorry, I skipped
That's
that.
okay.
Proclamation for resolution of City of Oroville recognizing Carl S. Bud Bolt for his lifetime of dedication and service to the City of Oroville and the Bolt Tool Museum. Do we have it with us, Andy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I put it on the dais. There is no one here to receive that resolution here in person tonight, so if you'd like to just read it into the record, motion for adoption, then we can proceed.
Thank you. I'll be happy to read it. You know, I'm going to let Ms. Goodson read it. She has a little better voice than I do.
Thank you. Recognizing Carl S. Bud Bolt honorably served his country as a United States Marine from 1947 to 1950, exemplifying the values of dedication, service, and commitment that would continue to define his life. And whereas in 1953, Bud Bolt was recognized as the 22nd highest producing dealer in the nation for Snap-on, demonstrating his expertise and passion in the field of tools, a passion that he also pursued through his work with Cornwell Quality Tools, Snap-on, and Mac Tools. And whereas Bud Bolt moved to Oroville in 1972, where he quickly became an integral part of the community, serving as a 4-H leader for 10 years and sharing his skills and knowledge for teaching, beginning woodwork to 4-H members, thereby fostering a love for craftsmanship and learning among the youth. And whereas on January 3rd, 2006, Bud Bolt generously donated his extensive collection of approximately 6,000 tools to the City of Oroville, a gift that has become the foundation of the Bolt Tool Museum, a beloved local institution that has brought together people from across the country to share in their love of tools and history. And whereas the Smithsonian Institute has recognized the Bolt Tool Museum as likely housing the world's largest collection of tools, it is a testament to Bud Bolt's tireless dedication over 50 years to building and curating this remarkable collection and its accompanying interpretive materials. And whereas through his efforts, Bud Bolt has not only preserved the history of tools, but has also fostered a deep appreciation for them in everyone he came into contact with, leaving an indelible mark on the community of Oroville and beyond. And whereas the City of Oroville wishes to honor Bud Bolt's lifetime of service and dedication, which has enriched the lives of countless individuals and solidified his legacy as a true champion of the city's cultural and historical heritage. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Oroville, through its City Council, hereby recognizes and honors Carl S. Bud Bolt for his lifetime of dedication and service to the City of Oroville and the Bolt Tool Museum. acknowledging his outstanding achievements and expressing profound gratitude for his contributions to the community. Passed and adopted by the City Council of the City of Oroville on this third day of September 2024.
Thank you, Councilman Goodson. She does a much better voice at that. The memorial for Bolt is this Saturday? Saturday?
It starts at 3 at the memorial, or at the Veterans Memorial, and then there will be a follow-up at the Bolt Museum.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll make sure the public knows about that.
And we'll push it out. We pushed it out, I know, once or twice on social media. We'll push it out again this week.
All right. Thank you all. Next item. Public.
I motion that we adopt a resolution honoring Carl Bud Bolt.
I second.
Call the roll.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item, got to stop flipping to my page. Public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any non-agenda cards?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. First, we will begin with Rhonda Magnuson and follow that with Brian Wong.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Rhonda.
Glad to be here to speak to you all. Now I just hope you hear me. I'm a little bit nervous, so excuse me. I'm here to speak about the homeless situation and to my experience on why we have it. Now, I can go to the mission, all of these services, they're an issue, as well as a personal opinion being hijacked, or your professional opinion, which leaves people stuck on stupid. I told you about a young 18-year-old girl that got put out there because of crying too much in a shelter. Did not deserve that, but that is her life out there, drug addicted, raped, beaten, all kinds of things. Another girl, 16 years old, gets caught up with a pimp when she runs away when she's 16. 15 years later, she tries to get away from this man. She comes with me to the Oroville Rescue Mission to be turned out at 4:30 in the night for closing the dorm door, because it was the first time she's been inside and away from her abuser in many years. An employee up in Chico, Taurus, gets caught stealing medication from the elderly. And do you know what he was doing to get a hold of that medication? He was putting them out onto your street. A man that had a stroke with one arm tells an employee that she wishes he was dead, that she was dead. He spends 8 months in a park with no food and water for that. The stories I can tell you are enormous. But your guys' opinion is that we choose to be there. My experience, some of you know, I was 6 years on that street. No drugs, no alcohol. So believe me when I say I am very, very aware of what I experienced. Now, you guys sit here and you want to think something and you want to do something. But until you walk out there and you hear that 18-year-old little girl's story, that I can guarantee you she doesn't even know anymore. But you sit here with no food, no water, no shelter, no sitting here, no sitting there, no sleeping. The Supreme Court just passed it. How in the heck that asinine stuff just happened is beyond me. And all of us, for that matter. Because like I heard here tonight, someone say just pack them up and ship them out. Or liberty and justice for all. Mm-hmm. Okay, packing them up. You do not even begin to imagine how many of this homeless community is your people.
Rhonda, your time has expired.
My time is up.
Yeah.
I will be back because you all need to hear
Thank you.
what you do not understand.
Thank you.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you. Up next, we have Brian Wong, followed by Bonnie Malone.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I just want to call to your attention about seems to be a string of traffic accidents on Montgomery Street. I just noticed like 2 more cars getting hit. It seems like both cars were hit on the same time, and this is just down the road. We have tenants that live in the neighborhood, so I'm just concerned because then a couple of weeks prior we had like another accident down there, and the car is still parked there. And also in front of Union, I've been coming in requesting for better safety traffic controls in front of a restaurant too. Because on the weekends, we have lots of families that cross the street. Sometimes they don't use the crosswalks and they're running across. So just want to have everybody think about better traffic control on Montgomery Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And Bonnie? Welcome, Bonnie.
Say, I'd like to commend the council for the sidewalks that we are seeing around our town. I've been here 51 years, and I can tell you that it is a tremendous improvement, and people will dance around and visit more parts of Oroville as a result. I do hope, and I'm thinking that in the planning are trees for the sidewalks, because it's a long, hot walk along, the one I'm thinking of is Olive Highway, where all the stores are on the right and on the left, the hospital. Can you tell me if there's a planning for trees, street trees? Because I didn't see any little holes cut.
We'll have to answer. We'll get your question answered after you're done.
Very good. And what else? Yeah, for now, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Actually, no. So I got to talk to, it's not within the scope of work for this project, but there is another Caltrans project coming following this one, and I'll follow up.
Okay, we'll get your answer, Bonnie. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing to that?
Sure.
So that's Caltrans. Thank you. She just said it. So the city, we actually had to talk about, I remember the presentation, there was some trees that were presented possibly in that, but it's actually controlled not by the city, it's owned by the state, and they're the ones doing the project there. So I know there's traffic, there's a lights, street lights that are coming in there, but I was hoping for trees as well. So hopefully we get some. That's all.
It's a big project, and there's phase 1, what we're into now. Phase 2, we'll be able to get some more detail for that. Any other cards?
It does.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Next, we have Chris Simmons, followed by Bill Spear.
Welcome, Chris. No worries.
I've lived on Montgomery for over 4 years. We've had 5 cars totaled. 5 cars totaled in the last 30 days. I'm not saying speed bumps, but a couple stop signs. If you go out there right now, average speed is 35 plus. If you're there between 7 and 8 o'clock, it's 50. I've lost a cat, neighbor lost a dog. My car, my work truck, got hit, $250 out of my pocket, but I provided the labor. I mean, it's still got a ding. Maybe a stop sign at the Lot House, which is a tourist attraction. Maybe one by the school, which is Catholic church. A couple stop signs on each side would reduce that traffic by half. Half. And let's see, would a petition do? I bet I could get 80% of this street to sign. Easy. Your traffic deals that say the speed, they're out after 8 and they're in by 4. You're missing rush hour. They come off that freeway and 45 is minimum. I mean, it is dangerous on this street. You could walk 2 blocks this way, watch the speed. Come to my front yard. It's nothing nice. We were out at 12 o'clock with the 2 total cars around my truck, and they were still doing 45. There was a tow truck. I still got a minute.
Yes.
There was a tow truck with flashing lights. They were still doing 45.
Wow.
A little black kid died down there. How much till we, 2 lousy stop signs? Put one in my front yard. Or one of those flashing 25 miles an hour, and then it tells how fast they're going.
Right.
You could put that right in my front yard today. And what's 2 stop signs and a line painted that says stop? You're going to save lives. You're going to save people's pockets, because that $250 could have went to my PG&E bill.
Yes.
Flat out. I'm tired
Yes.
of this.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for sharing.
Thank you, Chris. Who's the other one?
Yes, up next we have Bill Spear.
Bill. Councilman Weber, did you have a question on?
I was going to make some comments on this.
Okay.
But I have a feeling TJ Jensen might be jumping in, so,
Okay.
so I'm going to wait until
We'll hold. We'll hold. That's fine. Welcome, Bill.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. I could probably help out a little and slow down. Verse of the day is Philippians 1, 9 and 10. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. It's from the YouVersion verse of the day. Father, we thank you for our city, for our city council,
Amen.
for all of the constituents who come in to speak their hearts. Thank you for Rhonda and her testimony about being on the streets. And we thank you for the rescue mission and all the people who are trying to make a difference. And I just pray that we would not grow weary. We would not give up. Continue to see the opportunities that you give us to not only recognize the issues, but to solve them. As you give us that insight, that supernatural wisdom. If we all just do a little bit, it'll make a big change. And Lord, you are doing a change in our city, and just thank you for it and praise you for it. I want to continue to lift up our police, pray that you would continue to grow our force, the municipal law enforcement, our code enforcement. Just thank you for all their hard work. I want to continue to lift up the rescue mission and the Hope Center. They're on the front lines helping the least of these. In your word, it says, what we've done unto the least of these, we've done unto you. And so we thank you for them. We thank you for all of the service groups and all of the churches, all of the public servants. We thank you for today. We pray for wisdom today. We pray for supernatural provision for our city. We pray that you would do things in our city as we face the solutions and the problems that other cities that want to come and see how Orrville has dealt with it. We thank you that that you are giving us solutions to all the issues and to all the problems. And we pray that you would continue to encourage and strengthen, continue to bless, continue to protect and provide, and all the wonderful things that you do. We praise you and give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Up next, we have TJ Jensen.
TJ, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I was almost hit by a car in Oregon this weekend. So the mentality of my thought is never stop signs, never anything that tells me what to do, because I don't like being told what to do. So in my opinion, I don't know if the city can do this through legislation as far as governing bodies, but why don't you make pedestrians first? So when I was in Oregon in Ashland, the car comes around the corner, he didn't see us. Everybody else was stopped. Car slides to a stop right here. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't have to worry because everybody got out of their cars. That poor guy was so embarrassed by the time they were done with him because they are citizen pedestrians first. Oregon's a pedestrian first. So California is not, but can Oroville do that? Because if you make it I'm more about attraction, what attracts us to Oroville. Right now, all you hear about is homeless, crime, drugs. If we start adopting different resolutions, such as make it pedestrians first, then you don't necessarily need a stop sign. So just a mental change, maybe a shift, but just a thought.
Vice Mayor Smith, did you have a question for him?
Yeah, I was going to ask Assistant Chief Darnell to express some of the things that have been done recently in traffic mitigation. I witnessed one of our officers recently radaring on Montgomery to address some of the high speed. And then when it comes to pedestrians in the state of California, pedestrians do have the right of way. You don't yield to pedestrian, you can get cited for that in our state. And I think I'm correct on that. I'm sure that our Assistant Chief would have more to say on that. And I have personally observed less of an awareness, so it would seem, in the public in not yielding to pedestrians when they're crossing the road, to the point where I'll make that comment. We need to be aware of that because it seems like people are just not yielding to pedestrians. And I'll say no more. But Mr. Darnell?
Thank you, sir. Obviously, traffic is a major issue in the city, and the department resources will be used to combat this problem. Without going into further detail at this time, we will address the issue, sir.
Thank you.
And as far as pedestrians, right away?
Pedestrians do have the right of way, which, just to be clear, that doesn't mean someone can run and jump in front of a car. But pedestrians do have the right of way. We ask that all people crossing the street or using the crosswalks, please use proper safety and all of those things we're taught as children. But yes, no, pedestrians do have the right of way. And again, to mitigate the traffic issue, without going into everything right now, we will use all the resources available at the department to combat this problem. Cool. And we take it very seriously.
Thank you. Yeah, just visit D.C. Just visit another state where that's not the case. You take your life into your own hands when you cross the street. If you've ever visited D.C., for an example, it's pretty deadly.
Los Angeles.
We have another card?
You have to go all the way to D.C.
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Closed session. But go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you.
There we go. Seemed like maybe it was, maybe the supernatural powers that be, because it gave me more material. Well, first off, got a few things. I'm not dead, as the the Monty Python joke goes. For the last two meetings, I was busy. One of them started a little earlier, and I didn't make it, and the other, I was being found guilty as the meeting started in the Butte County Superior Court over $98.78 worth of food stamps that I offered to repay from the get-go, but obviously that counteroffer wasn't good enough because they wouldn't budge on probation. But nonetheless, meanwhile, while crimes are going on in our city and there's no available DAs to prosecute them, they were busy prosecuting me. But if anybody would like to write a letter of leniency or a letter of hatred to get me convicted even more, you can write Judge Rodriguez at 1 Court Street, Oroville, 95965, California. I'm going to talk about Pizzagate next. Not the mainstream Pizzagate, but kind of the one that I experienced last week here in Oroville. Now, there was a call came out at the Ralph's, property theft, common occurrence. Got there right after, I guess, the officer got description, and then he got in his vehicle. He, sped off like he was going to look for somebody, and I, maybe see where, help out, maybe, see this person as well. And he went to look for him in the, I guess, the Little Caesars pizza pickup cabinet, because that's immediately where he went after the call, right around the corner, sped off like a good show, and then just went into the pizza and put his code in, and then shortly after, he was unable to locate. So I guess the thief wasn't in the pizza cabinet. The next incident I would like to talk about was just last night, actually, out and about on the bicycle again now that my trial is over. Came up to the light there, coming towards the police department on Lincoln. Officer pulls up next to me, nice. Light changes green. I don't know why we need to do an exhibition of speed. I mean, I know it's Lincoln and it's laid out, but you're going straight and going to turn and curve, and, who knows who's going to be, who's potentially in the road or an object there coming around that curb. And then when going to a dumpster fire call last night, same thing. Blows past me by Spencer and Mitchell there by the transit station, which I would assume is no more than a 30-mile-an-hour road, and brushes past me to a red light and stops, waits for it to go green, and then I mean, I thought we had lights. I make sure to clear the intersection first, but why are you stopping and speeding up like that? That's just abuse of equipment, plain and simple.
Thanks, sir. Any more cards? None? Administration reports.
I'll report on one quick thing, Mr. Mayor. We had an executive committee meeting last on August 27th to discuss various impacts and issues that the city could attempt to do to address lower level crimes within the city. Came away with a number of action items, and these will all be coming back before your full council. But one of the items that was first discussed was an MLE hiring blitz. So we have 17 MLE allocations right now, and I think 8 of them are filled right now. So obviously we want to try to get as many of those positions filled as we possibly can. More presence on the street, more presence in the parks. Hopefully we'll deter some of the lower level crimes. So more to come on that. We're also proposing to use some of the opioid funds that we've received. Obviously, there's an item on the agenda tonight for the Sobering Center MOU, but there's also, we'd like to try to fund one of our MLE positions as the community navigator to also help provide those on a full-time basis, those on the streets that are in need. Right now, we're doing that service with a volunteer, and it's half-time. Mm-hmm. And the third item is to bring back some sort of the Hemet ordinance, the city of Hemet, with regards to addressing camping in public spaces. There were some ideas discussed about tweaking that a little bit, and then bringing that back to the full council. So those were 3 things that we'll be working on in the near future and bringing them back to you folks. That's all I have.
Any departments? Mr. Belser, looks like he's
I
ready.
just want to share some stats for August. Right now, code enforcement has 160 active cases. We closed 105 cases in August and opened up 99 new ones. Abated 22 AVA vehicles, abandoned vehicle abatement vehicles from roadways and private properties. Opened up 5 cases for building code violations, 31 cases for graffiti. I would like to mention that we are getting hammered with graffiti. A lot of educated graffiti artists that are from the Bay Area, a lot of 415 taggings, and they're huge. They're 3 and 4 feet tall. They're on abandoned vehicle or abandoned buildings. They're below our bridges along 70. These guys are down there for hours doing that stuff. So it's been really tough lately. We're going to look at maybe putting up some cameras somewhere. We have graffiti cameras that we can put up, portable ones. Hopefully they don't get stolen. But really bad. I mean, it's almost every day City Works is out abating graffiti. So we had 31 of those cases in the month of August. Many of those we just paint over and we don't even account them as cases. 5 multifamily violations, 69 public nuisance cases, and 1 new vacant building monitoring case. And I would like to thank Public Works, the Police Department, the MLEs, and Code Enforcement, Colin Huber. We were able to finally get some abatement warrants done to demo some houses that needed to be demoed years ago. Some of these cases are over 3 years old.
Yeah.
We went through, nobody wanted to do a receivership. They weren't paying property taxes. These homes were either burnt or they were being squatted in and used for criminal activity. But we did manage to destroy 2 of them and take them down 2365 C Street, which had over 40 calls for service from calendar year 23 to 24, with people squatting, people dealing drugs, using drugs, overdosing, abandoning vehicles on a property, illegal dumping. It was nice to see that property get demoed, and along with 2327 A Street, which was a property that burned in 2009. And again, people were using that as just a dump site, a place to squat and be involved in criminal activity. So we have a couple more houses left in the south side area. And when those 2 houses are done, then all of the houses, the 14 houses that we had in the receivership process, will be taken care of and over with.
Good to hear. Thank you. Any other departments?
Are those?
Oh, excuse me. Councilman Weber, it's on the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple things I'd like to talk about, and I would like to address the speeding on Montgomery as well. With all due respect to Mr. Simmons, he left. It's actually 6, and it might be 8 cars that I heard about that have been smashed in the last 4 weeks. So the question I had for the police department is, what, because one of them, I seen the video of this car smashing into 3 cars and then going across the street, hitting a tree, running over a pole, and then continuing to drive away. Now, how that car drove away, I have no idea, but you could clearly see sparks coming out and everything. So what, can we do a DUI checkpoint? Can we set up, I know on Oro Dam, we probably couldn't because that's CHP, right?
We can do DUI checkpoints, yes, sir.
Okay. And because I think that like the hit and run with this one car, there's no way of knowing if the person was inebriated, but I can only imagine they had to have been on something based upon the severity of the speed of the car, and it was astonishing that it even got away. But so the increased patrol, Vice Mayor Smith was talking about seeing the officer down there with the radar gun, and that was true. That did happen, and it was much appreciated by my constituents on Montgomery. They made note of that. But I would like to know what it would look like to up the timeline for you to get more of your officers with radar LiDAR certified, so we could have that on patrol regularly. So.
Yes, sir. We currently have 2 officers that are certified in that, and right now we're currently exploring all training opportunities for the officers within the department. We recently sent officers to field sobriety test school, so basically they can do better DUI evaluations, and we're open to sending as many officers as we can to different varying levels of traffic enforcement.
So I would love for you guys to because obviously these incidences in the last 4 weeks on Montgomery are not specific to just downtown. We have streets in every district around the entire city that has speeding issues, right? So I know I know all of us could identify certain blocks that people speed on and are extremely reckless. I live on Bird Street. I have a couple of my neighbors that love to blow through the stop sign by my house every single morning on their way to work. And it's just what they do. But I would love to see us be more proactive, in trying to, we don't have a crystal ball, right? We can't see or figure out when somebody under the influence is going to be driving. However, this Montgomery Street is clearly an issue. So I wanted to encourage us to look at what we could do there. And then also to Alyssa, because Mr. Mayo's not here, to also, let's do that traffic calming measure study. To Mr. Simmons' point, would it be a stop sign? Would it be speed bumps? Would it be, whatever we got to do to try to do some traffic calming measures along there? Because, like I said, I'm 1 block removed from Montgomery. My wife and I, we can hear the traffic going down, and a lot of times it's like a racetrack straight up. We can just hear them going down Montgomery really fast. So I think this deserves some attention, because here's the bottom line. A lot of these people probably don't even have the ability to fix their cars, and there's 2 of them that are, one shoved up on the sidewalk right now from something that must have happened last night, okay? And it's a Chevy truck on the corner of Leah and Montgomery, and it's halfway shoved up on the sidewalk right now. So that happened last night, I believe. Okay, so we need to respectfully, we need to do more to patrol these areas and make sure that we are trying to apprehend these speeders. So, do you have any comments on that?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. And then also, I would like to also at this simultaneously, I would like to recognize the work that OPD Code Enforcement and Public Works has been doing, because per Ron's administrative report there, you guys really all have been working in concert in tandem to do some fantastic work with encampments, with those houses you're talking about on the south side. That was fantastic work to get those destroyed out of there. What a wonderful, I mean, I talked to some of the neighbors over there. They are so pleased with that work because it stopped the traffic over there that was going on. And you know exactly what was going on in there. And I applaud your efforts and work with that, because that took years to get that done. So that's awesome. And then Alyssa, to you specifically, the Nelson Avenue work, the work that was done today, awesome job. Fantastic. Getting that west of the intersection finished. I was so pleased because my first job this morning was on Nelson Avenue. And as I pulled up, I was like, this is awesome. And so I called Fred immediately, and he's like, dude, Alyssa deserves the credit. She took the point on that and did it. So I wanted to give you kudos specifically for that project. Thank you very much. And then lastly, our district attorney is here, and I don't know exactly why he's here, but I'm glad he's here, because on September the 16th, we're having a community conversation at the State Theater, and I've got some of these flyers here, so anybody that wants one could have one. This community conversation is going to be centered around the importance and need for us as a community to pass Prop 36. Now, Prop 36 is wildly important legislation that we're trying to get passed, because Prop 47, which was given to us as a gift 10 years ago, with some unintended consequences. I don't think it was intentional in design, but there was some loopholes, right, Mr. Ramsey, that have been exposed, and the retail theft explosion that we've seen, the fentanyl explosion on our streets. A lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is almost exclusively tied into a couple of things, but tied to Prop 47. This Prop 36, will help unwind a little bit of that language in there, and then give prosecutorial horsepower back to our DA to actually hold some of these folks accountable. So that's going to happen September 16th at 5:30 p.m. at the State Theater. All these speakers will be there. John McGinnis is going to be a guest speaker. He's going to come. So I'm really excited about getting the word out. We need to get Prop 36 passed. This will help restore quality of life, not only in our city, but statewide as well. So this is really important we get this word out. So I'm going to put these right here, and whenever, if anybody wants one, please grab it. But I would highly encourage you guys to come to that and get educated, because this is going to be an educational conversation pertaining to the importance of why this needs to be passed. Now, I hate to put you on the spot, Mr. Ramsey, but would you care to add anything to that, or did I miss anything? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Goodson.
Yes. I just have a couple of things specifically for Mr. Belzer. And for those that were on the city council 3 years ago, and because of the Measure U monies, we were able to create a standalone code enforcement department. That was one of the best decisions that council made at that time, because you're actually seeing the results. Encampments, abandoned vehicles, squatters that have been living in those abandoned homes. So I just wanted to give credit to that council, and we appreciate your due diligence, Mr. Belzer, and your stick-to-itiveness. We appreciate your staff, those from Public Works that are working with you, and the additional crew. It has been a long time coming with those particular houses that you had mentioned. I can't thank you enough. You know, I have been in your ear for many a year. And so we finally have seen those, the warrants issued and the demos done. It's been a long time coming, at least 3 years. The second thing that I wanted to bring up was you had made reference in your staff report 22 abandoned vehicles. I believe that was in the month of August. Could you please explain the process for the removing of abandoned vehicles on private property?
The city of Oroville has an ordinance that says that if you leave a inoperable vehicle that is, parts missing, tires, wheels missing on private property, then we'll send you a notice.
Okay.
We notify everybody. You have 10 days to remove it. And if you don't remove it, then we come and remove it. And we do that under the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Program. It's no cost to the property owner. But if we are forced to go get a warrant, if they won't allow us on the property to remove the vehicle, we will go get an abatement warrant. And then things change, and it becomes a full cost recovery mission versus just going onto the property and towing the vehicle away. On 22669D of the California Vehicle Code talks about hazardous vehicles left in the public roadway. If you're going to abandon your vehicle in a roadway with parts missing, again, inoperable, it's a hazard to the public, open, accessible for someone to climb in and start living in, then we're going to tow the vehicle. And sometimes it just based on the condition, everything's subjective. If it's that big of a danger, if it's leaking oil or has jagged parts because it's been wrecked or whatever the case may be, where the public might injure themselves as a result of the vehicle, then we remove it immediately. We don't give it a 10-day notice. Everything, again, is just subjective, just based on the condition and what kind of hazard it is to the public.
Thank you very much. And so a person who has observed that type of activity can report going into the portal on the website.
Absolutely.
correct?
They can come into City Hall, they can go to the portal
Or-
on the website. We have emails, we have phone numbers. We have about 5 different ways you can report vehicles. But if you go to our city website, go under code enforcement, we have the abandoned vehicle abatement form sitting right there, easy to get to, easy to access.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Any of the department head reports? Look at everybody's faces. Don't see any over here? None over here? All right.
Smith is in the queue.
Then we'll move forward on the agenda.
Smith is in the queue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, just wanted to remind everyone, September 28th is Salmon Festival. Public transportation, free service. We'll take you from Riverbend Park to our beautiful museums. From there, you can hop on a trackless train, ride around the downtown, and check out the amazing cars. From there, go on over to the hatchery, and then take that free transportation back through town and back to your car. It's going to be a great day, September 28th. Put it on your calendar.
28.
All right.
Do you want to do consent really quick? Because I know the vice mayor has to leave, and then jump into the public hearing.
Okay. We did consent. We already did it. I jumped the
consent?
schedule. Yeah, we did it.
I motioned
Yeah.
with your amendment.
Remember, I was on the wrong page.
Well, that approved the agenda.
There's the agenda,
That was-
yeah.
I don't
not
think
the
we did
consent.
That wasn't the
So-
consent.
Yeah, we
That-
did consent.
Did we?
We
Okay.
did.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah. That's where I made an error in organizing.
Yes.
That's when I asked you to do the consent items, so.
It's time for vacation.
Is there a time on the public hearing?
It was 5:15.
So we better do that. All right. I will open up the public hearing. Item number 14, opened up at 5:26. The first reading of the zoning code amendment ZC 23-03, amending the section 17.12.060, tree preservation, section 17.12.065, oak tree loss mitigation, and section 17.48.070, tree removal permits of the Oroville Municipal Code. Who has this item? Oh, there he is, right here.
That'll be me, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so let me get my screen shared. All right, so good evening, Mayor, council members. We're back here again to go through some tree permits, and we'll just run through a quick presentation and leave it up some discussion. So we'll go through a quick recap and some other stuff and see where we end up. So some recap, 2009 general plan adopted, which set up some new goals, policies, and actions. With that general plan came the need for a new zoning code update. We received grant funding through Proposition 84, where we developed what we called the Oroville Sustainability Code updates. Climate Action Plan was also developed during that time, which directed the creation of an oak tree ordinance. And in 2015, the Sustainable Code updates were adopted and the oak tree ordinance codified. So how do we get to where we are today? This timeline begins before me, but November 2022 was when I picked this up. So staff began preparing an update to the city's tree regulations. This was in response to concerns that the existing ordinance was too burdensome and contained regulations that were not very friendly. So our first Planning Commission workshop was held in September 2023, with the second Planning Commission workshop held in October of 2023. The first time we came before you guys was in January of 2024, where we conducted a public hearing and requested some minor modifications pertaining to exceptions and applicability of the ordinance. So we returned back in March 2024 with those requested changes made, and additional changes were requested. So staff felt it was best to return to the Planning Commission. June 2024, we conducted a workshop with the Planning Commission, where the Planning Commission suggested a minor amendment to one of the exceptions, changing it, as you can see on page 116 of your packet, the applicability of the removal as it pertains to fire safety. So that one, they changed it to, as long as if you're following CAL FIRE defensible space guidelines, you don't need to get a permit to remove a tree. And they reaffirmed their recommendation to you guys, recommending approval of the ordinance, stating that it was a much needed update. So wait, what about trees? The city currently has 3 primary sections pertaining to trees and their removal and preservation. That's 17.12.060, tree preservation, 0.65 oak tree loss mitigation, and 0.070 tree removal permits. But first, let's run through some definitions. Some key terms when dealing with trees include heritage trees, trees that are at least 24 inches at diameter breast height. What's diameter? Diameter is the length of the line through the center of a circle. What's circumference? Circumference is the distance around the circle. That's the outside. What do these definitions mean for me? Well, when determining how large of a tree to protect, a city can either choose to use diameter or circumference to measure the size. In our case, the original writers of our tree regulations settled on diameter at breast height, DBH is an industry standard term. You calculate that by dividing circumference by pi. Circumference is measured at 54 inches above grade. So 24 inches DBH, it's a little hard to grasp. This is just a quick video to explain how you calculate that, how you get there, what that looks like.
Welcome from Portland Parks and Recreation Urban Forestry. This video will teach you how to accurately measure a tree using common household equipment. You will need a measuring tape, a thumbtack, some string, a marker, and a calculator. The standard way to measure a tree is diameter at breast height, or DBH. DBH refers to the diameter or cross-section of a tree at 4.5 feet above the ground. To find DBH, first measure 4.5 feet up the trunk from the ground and mark that height with your thumbtack. Then take your string and secure one end to the tree with the thumbtack at 4.5 feet. Wrap the string around the tree, making sure it remains tight and even all the way around. Pull the string tight and mark where it overlaps. Now measure the string between your marks to determine the circumference of the tree. This tree has a circumference of 84 inches. To get DBH, however, we want the diameter of the tree, so we must divide the circumference by pi. Using your calculator, divide the circumference by 3.14 and round to the nearest whole number. This tree has a DBH of 27 inches. Voila!
So that was just a quick example. You can see our code says 24 inches DBH is what's considered a protected tree. That's a pretty close size comparison, so you could just see what we'd be looking at. So some other examples, I went out on a walk. I took some pictures of some trees around me. How big is 24 inches? You could see these 2 examples on the left, the far left one. That's like a little sapling magnolia tree that someone planted. That's probably no more than 2 or 3 inches DBH. The second picture right there, around 10 to 12-ish. Then the far 2, those are really old palm tree and a really old ficus tree. Those are at 24 or greater. So it's a fairly large tree that we'd be looking at that's considered protected. This is an example of a preserved blue oak or valley oak tree here within the Oroville area. So what's actually changing? We're trying to allow greater flexibility for property owners. How are we accomplishing that? Reducing the oak tree mitigation from 2 inches for every 1 inch removed, and we're making it now 1 inch for every 1 inch. In addition, we're adding exceptions to permit requirements where there are none now. So you can see on page 117 of your packet, a comparison table. The existing ordinance allows 0 exceptions for the removal of trees that are not oak trees. We are proposing to add 8 new exceptions for the removal of any non-oak trees. We'll dive into some CEQA here real quick. So how does CEQA feel? CEQA does not necessarily specifically single out the removal of individual trees per se. It ultimately depends on the circumstances as a whole. In the case of us amending our zoning code and our ordinances here, it does have something to say. In 2015, the 6th District Court of Appeals published an opinion in Save Our Big Trees versus the City of Santa Cruz that the city failed to carry its burden to show that substantial evidence supported their tree code amendments were exempt from CEQA. The proposed code amendment pertained to change in the restrictions for removing non-native invasive trees and permitting the removal of heritage trees under certain circumstances. We are doing something very, very, very similar with a CEQA exemption, so we are trying to make sure we are legally defensible where applicable. If not the zoning code, what else? So if we don't utilize the exceptions and the code requirements for the sizing, the 24 inches and things like that, we default down to our 1999 Oroville CEQA review guidelines, which defines a significant oak woodland as a site of 1 acre or larger with a tree canopy cover greater than 20%. Areas that are smaller than 1 acre may be considered to have a significant oak woodland if tree canopy cover exceeds 50%. You can see an example on the right over here that shows you how tree canopy coverage is shown on an example. This is only if we didn't have our zoning code. So an example of before we had our oak woodlands requirements in code is the Butte Wood subdivision, the phase 2, phase 3. They were required to do an oak nexus study where they did a GIS analysis of the Oroville sphere of influence and how much acreage was covered in oak woodland and how much was proposed to be removed as part of the Butte Woods project. And it ultimately came up with a certain dollar amount of mitigation, on-site mitigation, off-site mitigation, all based on a canopy coverage from our 1999 CEQA review guidelines that predated our zoning code requirements. So true versus false. Under the current regulations, I can remove any tree I want without a permit. That is false. Under the current regulations, you must obtain a permit to remove a tree over 24 inches DBH or 6 inches in the case of an oak tree. I have to get a permit to remove an oak tree? Yeah, that's true. Under both the current and proposed regulations, the removal of an oak tree over 6 inches DBH requires a permit, with new exceptions proposed where there are currently none. The city won't allow me to maintain my trees without first getting a permit. That is false. Under both the current and proposed regulations, property owners are encouraged, they're more than welcome to, they're able to conduct routine maintenance, pruning. That does not require a permit, and you will not need to get a permit under the proposed one. So an example here, John lives on Main Street. He wants to remove a dead tree from his property. Does he need to get a permit? Under the current regulations, yes, John does need to get a permit. Under the proposed regulations, no, John will not need to get a permit. Jane here, Jane lives on Foothill Boulevard. She owns a large property that's greater than half an acre and has dense tree growth. Under the proposed regulations, is a tree permit required? No, in most circumstances, a permit will not be required. Jane can remove all dead trees without a permit. You can see the dead trees in red. Furthermore, Jane can follow CAL FIRE defensible space guidelines to make her property fire safe without the need for a permit. Jane can follow those vertical and horizontal spacing requirements set forth by CAL FIRE, 10 feet on flat ground up to 30 feet on slopes between trees. She is more than welcome to cut them down to make sure she maintains defensible space. In addition, she is also welcome if her homeowner's insurance tells her she must remove some trees from around her property. She can do that without the need for a permit. Under our current regulations, that is not the case. This is an example of a tree survey that was conducted at the Village at Ruddy Creek subdivision on 18th and Feather Avenue. That is a project that is subject to CEQA because it is a subdivision of land and is a discretionary application. As part of that, this is an example of how the implementation of our oak tree ordinance was done. A certified arborist went out on the property and analyzed the trees for which ones were 6 inches in DBH greater or 24 inches greater, and identified those on a tree plan here. Those are proposed to be removed and mitigated based on a special city council agreement with the property owner, allowing for reduced mitigation. We ultimately was one of the triggers for the need for this update because a 2-for-1 mitigation was found to be quite burdensome on our developers and property owners. But this is an example of what a tree survey would look like. If we didn't have our zoning code, this developer would have had to have done something very similar to what the Butte Woods did and done a tree canopy analysis and an oak tree nexus study to determine how many trees were going to be impacted and what needed to be done in accordance to CEQA. So what about a voluntary tree protection program? We have one. No one's ever done it before. A property owner is eligible to apply for a landmark designation in accordance with section 17.48.040. Like I mentioned, not a single person has ever applied for one, and we don't know if anyone ever will. So I'll just leave it up for some questions and discussions, and hopefully we'll get an action to move this on today.
Does council have any questions?
Thank you, Conrad. Very thorough and informational. Appreciate that.
Certainly. Do we have any cards on this item?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. We'll begin with Bill Spear and follow that with Linda Draper.
All right. Mr. Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I'm of the opinion of, in the circumstances, of pro-choice. My property, my choice. We just had the Thompson fire where the only reason that it didn't come into Orville was because the wind was blowing that way. If the wind would have been blowing this way, it would have came right in. There would have been nothing to stop it. The problem we have in Orville is not people cutting the trees down. People value their trees, but they don't take care of the trees that we have. If you have an urban area, if you have a large tree, it not only endangers your house, but all the neighbors around you, especially in the downtown area. If it falls, it's not going to, whichever way it falls, it's not going to come to rest without doing damage to somebody's property. I am a tree surgeon. The city shouldn't be coming in between me and my client on deciding how they want to take care of their tree issues. If they're worried about a tree and they want to cut it down, they should be able to cut it down without having more bureaucracy of the city trying to tell them what they can cut down or what they can't cut down. That's between them, and it's their property and their tree care professional. We do, I would support an ordinance requiring people with mature trees to take care of them. It puts everyone at hazard. Thank God for the insurance companies that are requiring people to get safety clearance to cut down trees. The sound of tree conservatism is the sound of a chainsaw. You have to maintain the property. You have to cut trees down. The safest and best trees are the new ones that are planted that are fresh. Once they get to a certain size, even our downtown trees that are starting to do curb and gutter and street damage, they should have been cut down 10 years ago, 15 years, and replaced with the new one. We would have all these fresh new trees at an optimal height that are not in a danger when we get a storm coming, or also fire safety. We were talking last city council meeting about trying to come up with a plan to make our city more fire safe. The way that you make it more fire safe is you reduce the amount of vegetation. You do it, one, by policies, by making policies that are not making it more difficult for people to maintain their property, and with policies that will encourage them, like maybe a chip where the people can get the weeds cut down.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next, we have Linda Draper.
Okay. Welcome, Linda.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Oh, it's turned off?
Oh, it's on.
It's on now.
Okay. I'm glad I came because just from reading the agenda and trying to figure out what was in the packet, I wasn't quite sure what this tree ordinance involved. And so that was reassuring to see the presentation and to see that things are being taken into consideration to protect the trees, especially the native oaks. I don't know if you've noticed in the last 7 or 8 years, but the evergreens along the levee are dying. And occasionally the Parks Department, I guess they cut off a top or something. But we're losing trees in this town, and we're losing them from sunburn and lack of water. And I disagree with Mr. Spear's comments about cutting down the trees once they get a certain height. If you've been to Ashland, Oregon, or Chico, California, they have beautiful old trees, and they do not cut them down when they get to be a certain height, because that's when they provide the most shade. And so anyway, the problem, I think, with our downtown was what I heard a few years ago, that the man who was in charge of planting those trees had inadvertently planted the wrong tree in the wrong place. And so on some city streets, they won't work well with large trees, obviously. But there are areas of town where they will. And I am concerned about the condition of the trees, and especially the native oaks, because they are so much an iconic image for Oroville and Northern California. But I realize that property owners have to do what they can to lower their insurance rates, and I know that they have to cut back dense growth or trees that are dead or not doing well. But at the same time, I appreciate this council's approach that you are trying to be careful as you endeavor to make the trees, remove trees that need to be taken out and that kind of thing. But as I said, we're losing trees in this town. And you can just look around and see, a lot of them have been cut down in the last couple of years. And a lot of them are just dying from sunburn and lack of water. And the reason I know it's sunburn on a lot of trees, at my house, my husband had to put a wrapping around 2 of our trees because we lost one from sunburn. And an arborist came and told us that's what killed it. And it was about a 70-year-old plum tree, I think it was. But anyway, it was beautiful and had really pretty blossoms in the spring, and I hated to lose it. But that's our reality with our hot summers. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have for submitted cards, Mr. Mayor. Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Welcome, TJ, again.
Thank you. I just can't thank you guys.
Push the button. There you go.
I can't thank you guys enough. This single-handedly will help our industry. I've lost 2 contractors over the oak tree mitigation, and it will literally help with building and also protecting, especially in my neighborhood. We have a lot of beautiful oak trees. I take care of mine, my neighbors do too, but it will help us when we have to mitigate insurance. It's burdensome on the homeowner, and this allows them not to break the law. So we really appreciate it. I think if anybody in the real estate industry and insurance industry would thank you guys for putting this at the forefront.
Thank you, sir. Any others? No?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
sir.
All right. What's the council's pleasure?
I motion that we adopt ordinance 1877 and resolution 9213.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all. We'll close the public hearing and get back to our regular agenda, which now has regular business.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes, sir.
could, please, I need to interject. I'm reminded of some lyrics from Talking Heads, but earlier this evening, I think we all collectively experienced a little bit of a confusion. We found ourselves in another part of the agenda.
Right.
And we might ask ourselves, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime, of
Yeah.
course, right? So my notes show that when we were dealing with the approval of the agenda Mr. Ring gave an adjustment, and then there was a motion and a second and a vote at that point in time. And because the amendment was in the first section of the agenda item on the consent calendar, I think we got confused and we thought we were approving the consent calendar when we were approving the agenda.
Okay.
So I would urge the council to consider going back and making sure that we do approve the consent calendar at this point.
And that's actually my.
Fair enough.
I was going to bring that back.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's my notes.
Yeah.
All right.
And
I
if
move that
nobody
we
knows,
approve the
that was
consent
talking
calendar.
heads, you know. It's kind of funny.
Well, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, we
Yes.
do have a submitted public comment card for the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
So we do have one on item number 1 from Al Zib.
From who?
Al?
Al Zib, Z-I-B.
Me again.
Welcome.
Anyways, I would like this item removed for discussion. My request. I do not agree with a notice of exemption. It should follow regular environmental review. It should not be under this new thing that the state is pushing. Haven't even seen the projects. What are you building? You say mixed use. What's the project? You make a design, so many units, and then everybody says, oh, wow, oh, okay, that works then. Bonus! I'll get 20 more units, 30 more units, twice the size. So I'm against the environmental review, notice of exemption. And I'm against the general plan altogether. It should stay public and not mixed use. That is, and I have to say that. I have to give my input. Free legal.
Thanks, sir.
That's all I have for submitted comment cards on the consent calendar, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Pleasure of the council as to whether you want to take up that item separately.
So,
Item number
I'm,
1 on consent. Right.
did you want to take it up separately?
Do you want to take it up separately? Do anyone want to pull it? Or include it
I
in the
don't wanna
consent
pull
calendar?
I don't want to pull it.
Seeing none pulled?
Mhm.
So then I would entertain a motion for consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Consent calendar passes unanimously.
Thank you all. Appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Got too many pages of the agenda. I gotta quit flipping them. Regular business, item number 7. Memorandum of understanding with Butte County Behavioral Health for Sobering Center participation, associated budget adjustment, and creation of Fund 121 for tracking opioid settlement dollars.
I'll kick this off, Mr. Mayor. Back on February of this year, we had a presentation from Behavioral Health Director Scott Kennelly from the county, and they were rolling out a new sobering center, which would be a tool that, frankly, it's a tool that many people can use, but obviously it was one tool that law enforcement could potentially use for individuals that are causing disturbances or under the influence of drugs, and they have a choice of either going to the Butte County Jail or to a sobering center to ideally get some services there and make some changes in their life for the long term. Staff were directed that evening to look at the options, consider some of the issues such as transportations, because there would be transportation needed to transport an individual from the city of Oroville to the sobering center, which is located in Chico, and also just to work on an MOU with the county and bring it back to the council for consideration. And it's been a number of months. Worked very closely with Assistant Chief Darnell and Chief Lagrone on this issue, and they both are in agreement that they feel that this would be an ideal tool to at least try. It doesn't lock you in if it doesn't work. It's not something that we have to be doing on a long term. Ideally, it's a tool that works well for them, and ideally it works well for those that are in need of the help and get the services that they needed. I did ask Director Kennelly just for some data that they had, because the sobering center did go operational. I don't know if you saw it in the news, but they did go operational on August 1st. Their first month of operations that I'm sure Scott can provide more information, but they serviced 49 folks were intaked into the facility to provide various services. So again, it's a new tool. We do have the opioid funds that are available. The city did receive more opioid funding last week. We learned of more settlements that were reached. So we do have the resources available to do this, as well as right now we have a housing navigator program with the social service department, and we also were looking at that MLE position. We have enough resources to do all those. So it's an idea that we'd like to give it a try and see how it works for our law enforcement folks. Assistant Chief, do you have anything to add?
Nothing for the good of the order, sir.
I don't know if you want to hear from Mr. Director Kennelly at all.
Councilman Weber's in the queue.
When we originally heard this proposal several months back, I was initially opposed to it due to the small amount of opioid settlement money we were receiving, and we already had commitments with the county, with the housing navigator, and I was more interested in seeing the money stay locally. But with the increase that we received a couple weeks ago, I am more apt to vote yes on this because, as you know, and you explained, that we did get a significant increase in our opioid settlement money, which I think we could work, we could use to distribute that money very effectively. And working with our partner agencies, I think would be a wise decision. Initially, I thought it was not a wise investment because there was such a small amount of money. And to slice that pie up, if you will, didn't make much sense to me. But I'm thinking that this makes a lot more sense to me now.
Looks like Councilman Johnstone's in the queue.
Thank you. So I too was not necessarily for it initially, but after reading through the item on the packet, and also I like the idea that we will be receiving a quarterly report, I believe, and it's going to not only include the total number of people serviced, but it will also break it down by Chico and Oroville. So we will get an update initially on, the first quarter on how many people from Oroville were serviced. That's correct? Am I reading that correctly?
I believe so. I'm looking at Scott. I believe that's correct. Come on, Scott.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Scott Kennelly, Director for Behavioral Health. Yes, that is correct. You will get a quarterly report breaking down various data points for the Sobering Center. And if you are interested in hearing the first month's data outcomes, I can share them with you tonight.
That was actually my next question for you.
Okay.
While you're up.
So just a little background. The grand opening was on August 1st. It was an incredibly uplifting event. We had over 100 people there. We had individuals from the Moortown Rancheria who were actually doing a dedicating song in opening of the center, as well as a donation towards the center, recognizing that the tribes also need Sobering Center services. City of Chico was there, the sheriff, law enforcement from various jurisdictions. Our DA was there. Healthcare providers, Assemblyman Gallagher's office, Congressman Lamalfa's office was there, or representatives, Partnership Health Plan, and a variety of people from the public, including from Oroville, that had an interest in the Sobering Center were there. So during the month of August, we had, of course, the campfire and a lot of other crises that law enforcement had to prioritize. So we did not have as many law enforcement referrals as we had hoped to, and that we believe is going to change as things settle down with the fires. In addition, there was some confusion in Oroville about whether or not they could refer people to the Sobering Center because an MOU was not in place. So Oroville Hospital, for example, had people but didn't think they could refer. So we had to clarify some of those things, and moving forward, we hope to see more people from Oroville. There were 49 intakes completed from August 1st to August 30th. 30 of those individuals had Medi-Cal or Partnership Health Plan, local Butte County. 9 of those individuals were out-of-county Medi-Cal individuals who, from what I can understand, were probably homeless and picked up that had Medi-Cal from other counties. 9 people had no insurance. We received 2 referrals from Chico PD, 1 referral from Chico State PD, 2 from Enloe Hospital, 3 from behavioral health outreach teams that are in the community, and we had 41 walk-ins. That number shocked me a little bit. We had people self-referring themselves coming in, and we also had family members driving these individuals in and saying, my son, my daughter, my neighbor is under the influence and willing to get help. So that was a little, we thought we'd have a higher law enforcement referral, fewer walk-ins. We were surprised. The total number of people on average spent 9.73 hours in the sobering center, so about a 10-hour stay while they were there. And the referrals out, which I think people are interested in 5 people referred to County Drug and Alcohol Services, 5 people referred to County Mental Health Services, 2 people referred to Skyway House Residential Treatment, 1 to the VA for follow-up care, 2 to Ampla Health, 1 to Elijah House, which is another treatment center, 4 to the Jesus Center, 1 to the Johnson House, another treatment center, 1 to Everhart Village, our tiny homes, 2 to Enloe Hospital, and 25 to Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. So the Sobering Center also has something called Pulse, which is a client evaluation of how they felt about the services, were the staff attentive, what they'd feel. Out of 5 stars, overall 4.60 rating for the first month. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Smith is up the queue right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. So the opioid mitigation dollars, I think it'd be good to explain, just in a real quick 30,000 foot, what on earth is that? So Mr. Ring, if you could explain that. And then I understand if we're not happy with the results as we go into this program with you, then it's nimble. We can redirect, because at the end of the day, what we want to see is results, people genuinely being helped with addiction as it applies to opiate. So why are we getting this money? And then what are we looking for results?
Yeah, so the opioid dollars, I call them, there's been a number of lawsuits for those that it's been deemed that opioids have caused a lot of addictions throughout the United States. So a lot of these agencies that either distributed medication, but there's been a number of lawsuits. I mean, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart. There's been a number. I mean, I don't know how many exact people are defendants in this, but there's a number of them. You know, we have settlements with 7 of them, and the council signed on to receive these settlement dollars about 3 years ago, I believe it was. So when we received these dollars, again, last week we learned of 5 more settlements that had some money funneled through the city of Oroville. And you might think, okay, that's great, the city of Oroville is getting these dollars, but it is very restrictive dollars. It has to be used for a specific purpose. And the Sobering Center is a great way to do that. Obviously, we've been using it in other manners to try to reach out to those folks that are on the streets that have addictions and provide them with services as well. So these dollars cannot be used for, they're not general purpose dollars. They can't be used for anything that the city council wishes to use them for. And that's why one other item on this agenda is to establish an opioid settlement fund, so we can make sure we're tracking all these different things. Because again, as we get more of these funds coming in, we want to make sure we're tracking them appropriately and we're spending them appropriately.
Yeah, and the comment I made at the last council meeting, where the frustration when it comes to, public safety, we see folks that are clearly deep in their addiction and they're endangering themselves and the public and their behavior, and so we're looking to you to help us, resolve some of those issues, but to that end, I guess it's limited. This is a self-check-in, so maybe you could just explain that real quick, and then I'll yield the rest. I'll be done.
So Sobering Center by nature is a voluntary facility. It's not locked. It's something that someone must say, I would like to go here as an alternative, or I'd like to go here to get some help. Typically, law enforcement encounters these individuals in the community. They're under the influence, and they would be taken to jail, or what was called the drunk tank in the old days. Also, people can self-refer, or treatment providers can say, hey, I think, Scott, you got a real problem, and you're coming to my session under the influence. I think you need to go to the Sobering Center and get some help. At the Sobering Center, they can stay up to 24 hours. There's nurses on staff, substance abuse counselor on staff, and a doctor via telemed who can do some consultation. They can get a shower, food, a place to sleep, sober up, essentially, and then the staff begin engaging through a number of tools, such as motivational interviewing and other treatment tools, to try and build some motivation for the individual to stop using and to perhaps get some help. The nice part about the sobering center, it's in the same complex as our drug and alcohol treatment services, crisis services and mental health services, so it's a one-stop shop, so they can go any direction and get help post-sobering center services. Our hope is to get someone off of substances such as alcohol or opioids and into medication-assisted therapy as well as counseling of some kind. MAT, or medication-assisted therapy, is a form of a prescription that can help someone with side effects, help them come down off medications, and help them stay off medications. Our psychiatrists prescribe MAT, Ampla Health, North Valley Indian Health, a number of healthcare providers, as well as Aegis Treatment Center provides methadone treatment and MAT. All of those resources are critical, as well as housing and follow-up care for the individuals coming out of the sobering center. So that's why you heard some of these referrals were to shelters, some of them were to treatment providers, some of them were to Alcoholics Anonymous or NA. So each person has an individualized response, but sobering centers are not guaranteed. Someone in the cycle of their addiction can take multiple encounters before they decide that they're ready to change, and some people first encounter say, yes, okay, I'm ready, and others will not. Despite all your best efforts. And at that point, if law enforcement's picking someone up multiple times and sending them to the sobering center and they're not cooperating or trying to get help, they can stop referring them and choose to instead seek incarceration as a tool. One plea, if I could put it out there, is as we identify more people who need treatment, particularly methadone treatment, Ampla Health is our primary methadone provider. Not Ampla Health, I apologize. Aegis Health is our primary methadone provider in Chico. That's great for Chico, but there's a number of people in Oroville who are on methadone that have to do a daily commute up to Chico to get their methadone and then drive back or miss time from their work. I know Aegis Treatment Center is trying to find a location in Oroville, has a grant to establish a location in Oroville. And as far as expanding drug and alcohol services, it's a plea that the city council and the county consider potentially granting them the ability to locate in Oroville to serve the population that is already needing methadone or not on methadone yet. So,
That's good to know.
Councilman Weber's in the queue.
Yes, thank you very much. I've got a couple questions, and I seem to remember that there was some concern at the OPD with transportation back and forth. Has that been addressed at all, or has there been a conversation about that?
Yes, Mr. Weber, it's our understanding we're transporting people to the sobering center, and then if you guys were facilitating any ride back to Oroville from then on.
I haven't been in the direct conversations, but my understanding was you were utilizing, and I apologize, in Chico's called the STARS program, the alternative transportation system that they might be able to transport.
Our non-sworn officers would make the
Thank you.
transportation.
But that might be the way so that your officers can stay on the street and they can still transport. And then the sobering center coordinates transportation back either via bus, Uber, or friend or family.
Okay, because that is obviously a high concern given the limited number of staff that OPD has at any given moment. We didn't want them tied up for hours at a time transporting back and forth. As I explained before when you were here before, okay, there's the idea that we're going to have a sobering center for opioids in a day is as you know, it's impossible because you can't. I mean, in order to get sober or clean from it, it's a very long process. So, with that being said, though, if this were to be treated as an entry point to services, right, and that's the way I'm looking at this now, in light of the enhanced money that we have, right? So before it was a money issue, I don't want to spend that there, but if this is an entry point, so my question for you then is, looking toward the holistic approach of what especially opioids, alcohol withdrawals are much faster than opiates are. Opiates are a multiple week issue, especially when you add Suboxone or fentanyl, which Suboxone and fentanyl are far worse and longer kicks, if you will. It takes a lot longer, and you're aware of this, correct? Correct. Okay. So heroin is far faster. You could kick heroin far easier than you can synthetic opiates. Methadone, Suboxone, fentanyl, all those things are it's far, far more difficult to kick. So my question for you is this, what are you doing to build community partnerships in these, because you already named a couple, like the Jesus Center and another one, I can't remember who it was, but are you going to be looking to build partnerships in Orville as well with local providers that you can refer to? Because anyway, I'll let you answer that question.
So yes, those are some great questions. Yes, we are trying to expand not just substance use treatment such as Aegis and the county, but substance use residential, sober living environments into places like Oroville and all of Butte County. The challenge we have with regards to something you just mentioned, I think is good to highlight, is some of these individuals that come in on the longer term hardcore drugs need to actually go through medical detox.
Yes.
And the way the state has carved out drug and alcohol services, the county behavioral health system is not reimbursed for any kind of medical detox service. The state funds medical
Crazy.
detox service. It is crazy.
That's crazy.
It's like
Yeah.
you can't. There is a wrong door with
Yeah.
SUD. So we recognize the only place that does medical detox currently is our emergency rooms. I've been in touch with the CEOs from the different emergency rooms or the different hospitals about not just opening a detox service that's more, not an ER wing, but an actual formal wing that we can send people who need this care, but also opening what they call med psych facilities, using the current grant, which is out right now with Governor Newsom for Prop 1, that will fund with millions and millions of dollars new infrastructure for drug and alcohol services and mental health services. So I've asked Orville Hospital, Orchard Hospital, and Enloe Hospital consider accessing these grant funds, which pays for the bricks and mortar or the renovation of the facilities. The challenge that's there that I've heard is, yes, we're interested, but how do we staff these things?
Mm-hmm.
That is a tough question.
Sure. So, and I agree with that. That's insane that they're not funded. Because that is such a huge need, but it is such it's such a tasking need on the provider, right? I mean, it's a big lift for the provider,
right?
So I'm very familiar with many local providers here in our community that do a great job and routinely help these folks detox, which, as you know, it's a very difficult process to do. Would you be willing to open partnership with or a conversation with them as to what the criteria would look like for you to say, okay, because I'll be totally transparent. I'm not a big fan of Aegis's model, okay? And I'll be 100% transparent. You want to know why? Because I was once on methadone as a maintenance to try to get me off. And the problem that I have with Aegis's model is that they'll take you up pretty much as high as you want to go. But then when you want to go down, they taper you over like a 2-year period. And so I'm not a huge fan of that, okay? And so me personally, what I ended up doing is I just walked off because they wouldn't take me down. So I got over my fear of kicking and I just did it, okay? And so because they just wouldn't do it, they wouldn't take me down. And so I'm not a huge fan of that model. So if that's the exclusive partner you're partnering with, that kind of concerns me a little bit because I've been there. I've lived it. And so I would much rather see that that you would have a robust culture that would be cultivated, that would be partnering with a bunch of different providers to give them, because I'm worried that you're going to say, hey, you got opiate problems, let's funnel you right over here, and then all of a sudden you're on this maintenance program for however long, right? So that's a concern for me. I'd rather see you personally build a network of vetted, trusted partners that you could say, hey, now you have all these different choices. You could choose this one or that one in Chico and Orville, and I'm hoping that you'll do that because you're still going to get my support in this tonight. But I'm hoping that could be a conversation. If you want to have a conversation one-on-one, I would love to meet with you about this because I got a lot of thoughts on this. So
absolutely. In response to your ask, two things. Aegis Treatment Center, historically we haven't had a medical director in place, which is overseeing all of our psychiatrists and our treatment. We have since had Dr. Donovan Wong with us for the last, he's coming on 2 years now. One of his jobs is to audit charts, including Aegis's charts, to say, how long do you have people on methadone? What's your tapering plan? And with oversight to encourage that to happen. I don't know when you were in Aegis, but that has been something the last couple of medical
like 15
directors.
years ago.
Yeah,
So
there's been quite a bit of progress in that area and a lot more oversight to say, this isn't a long-term medication for many people. It should be, a year, 2 years at max, and then you're out.
Yeah.
But in answer to your other question, so methadone is the only medication that Aegis has the sole source on in Butte County. They can, other providers, like I mentioned, Ampla Health, North Valley Indian Health, and our own county psychiatrists We prescribe Vivitrol for the alcohol. We prescribe Suboxone for the opioids. And we do encourage strongly anyone working with us has trained staff who can prescribe and give choices to our clients. So it's not that Aegis is the only game in town. They're just one of a menu. And I absolutely agree with you. Addicts need to be able to taper off, and we need medical providers who are looking at that actively.
Right, and here's the key. It's like, we need, this is not a cookie cutter thing, right? You got to understand that some people might be really, really ambitious and driven to get it done, like I was in that case. I wanted to go down like right now because I was just over it, Where other people were like, no, I want to stay right where I'm at for a long time. And I was like, nope, I don't want to come in this building no more, so I wanted off. So, to recognize that is a really vital, because for me, I was over it. I was done. I just want to be done with this. I want to be drug free. I don't want no dependency for anything. And so, thank God I've got, going on 15 years sober. So, but anyway, thank you for taking my comments and questions. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Do we have the queue? Is there anything else? Someone else in the queue? I don't see the light up.
I removed myself.
Okay. Any council questions? Do we have any cards on this?
Yes, we do. We will begin with TJ Jensen and follow that with Mike Ramsey.
Okay.
Now we know why you're here.
TJ, welcome back.
I'm sorry I didn't write number 6. I wrote 7. That was my fault. It's an economic factor. I don't like perpetual circles, of economics. And it's a failed policy at the federal level where Washington didn't regulate the drug in the first place. And so here you are at our level handling it. And I love what Tracy Johnstone said is, how do you follow the matrix? Knowing that that's coming back. Not that you guys have a whole bunch of time to look at reports, but it's very concerning to me as a citizen that every city council meeting you guys are having to address drug, opioids, alcohol, because that is not your purview. We should be talking about economic factors and, darn it, save a tree, or whatever those factors may be. Unfortunately, we don't live in that climate anymore. But if there's a mechanism in which you watch where that funding goes, because that funding was done through a lawsuit of lawyers that sued multiple agencies for their wrongdoing because the federal government failed. Now they're putting it at your level, and that really frustrates me because all it is a perpetual way to employ people through a program that is all based on something that should have been regulated at the first place. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsey, welcome.
Council members, basically, I wasn't planning on this particular one. It's the fireworks that I'm here on. But I saw this, and just a little history. This has been 30 years in the making. This has been a sobering center, has been necessary for this county, this community, for the last 30 years. Various behavioral health directors have made the effort and have failed. And the largest failure was the lack of medical personnel there to take the people down. Director Kennelly finally put this together after 3 decades. He wasn't around 3 decades ago. I don't think he's quite 30 years old. But anyway, what we are looking at in this situation is the concern, Councilman Weber indicated, is taking people from Orville all the way to Chico. Well, the obvious answer is there's one sobering center. There's money for enough for one sobering center. Where are the people that need it most? Where is that population, as it were? Well, Chico. And so that's where it was put, with the understanding that Orville would, of course, be part of this process, and it would be necessary. And I think the mules would be, the MLEs would be the appropriate transport for these folks. But to give further background is the sheriff has a policy with the sobering center in place that he will not be taking 647Fs in at the jail, absent an attempt first at the sobering center. So that's the hard reality of that. But this is a process and a program that it's not just opioids. This goes back to alcohol, and alcohol's been around for a long time. It's been around in this community for a long time, knowing since my grandfather was a premier bootlegger back in the day. And it's been 100 years ago today that he was tried and convicted of bootlegging and did his time.
Yeah.
So that's always a problem too, and this will deal with that.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Do we have any other cards?
That's all I have for this,
All right.
on this item, sir.
I motion that we adopt or approve the memorandum of understanding with Butte County for the participation in the Butte County Sobering Center and authorize the mayor to sign and approve the associated budget adjustment and the creation of Fund 121.
A second.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Glad that's over.
All right, item number 8. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Discussion of sales and use of fireworks within the city. Who has that, I guess? Ryan?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off as well. This item was asked to be brought forward for the full council for more discussion after we had the issue, the Thompson fire back in July, which prompted a local disaster declaration and a temporary ban on fireworks, which have been obviously a staple in this community for a number of years. Just some background here. The California Health and Safety Code 12599 restricts when fireworks can be, safe and sane fireworks can be sold. And it restricts them to be sold between June 28th and July 6th. We then have our municipal code, which has restrictions in it as well with regards to when the fireworks can be sold. But they have to be within that tight window that the health and safety code stipulate. Neither the health and safety code nor the municipal code stipulate any restrictions on when they may be deployed. It only talks about when they may be sold. So that's just some background there. I think what prompted this discussion to be agendized was the recent Julys that the community has had over the last few years, where we've had excessive heat, low humidity, and we've had our fire resources that have just been stretched to levels that we haven't seen in many, many years. While files are common, it seems like they're just becoming rampant in the month of July. It's the hottest month that we have, and like I said, due to the weather conditions, even the winds are coming up where it's become a challenge. Again, what prompted us this past on July 3rd, I believe it was again, there was just resources, law enforcement, fire personnel were stretched all over the state. And it was decided that, we just can't take the risk of having any other, maybe small at the moment, but any other issues arise on the 4th of July, which prompted law enforcement and public safety personnel to be deployed when they're already stretched so thin. So the idea was just to bring this before the full council to see if there were any ideas on this and how the city would like to proceed going forward.
Okay. I've got myself up there first. Couple things too, as we got some very amazing voluntary compliance by the public, asking them not to use. I think it was a very different year, and I've worked the fireworks for the last 35 years in terms of seeing the neighborhood family groupings and celebrate the 4th of July. I think that's a very positive thing for our neighborhoods. But we do have a couple of restricted areas. I know it's not restricted by utilization except for a certain area out where Mr. Ramsey lives. And myself, yeah. That was a deal agreement on the annexation of that particular property, which is in the foothills. So that was a step taken by this council. The other question I have is the permittees that were issued permits. There's kind of a question I received about the cleaning fee, and as there wasn't any cleaning necessary, should we reimburse those applicants? That question came to me, and that's why it came to staff. I think this council would have to decide to do that or not, because my preference would be, in thinking about it and dealing with many of the service clubs that do receive the funding from this, is to possibly credit them for next year's permit if they're going to issue permits, to move that forward versus a reimbursement. Many of them seem to think that was a good idea. And I don't know what, Patrick, what is the fee for cleaning?
I don't know the exact number, but it's over $500. It's like
Yeah.
$520 something.
And see, the complication here is we have to work with the state of California and the city ordinances. There's two things that have to partner together. And I know some discussion was maybe let's move the fireworks activity to the New Year's Eve. But we really can't do that because the state health and safety code doesn't allow us to sell them at that period of time. So there's a couple of complications here, and I certainly entertain discussion for it, but that's all I have. Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. I am personally of the mindset that the city of Oroville should join our other neighboring communities, including Chico, and restrict the sale and use of fireworks within the city limits. I think that it's a burden on our law enforcement at a time where law enforcement is quite critically needed in various regions throughout our community. I understand that many nonprofits are dependent on the funding from those fireworks sales and would encourage them to consider other ways that they could raise funds, including bolstering the fireworks display that our community already, as a joint effort, supports and upholds. And then finally, I would also like to say that from my perspective, when we did the temporary ban on fireworks, I received a lot of positive comments from community members saying, thank you, it's about time. I can't believe that we've allowed fireworks for so long already. And so from my perspective, I've seen a lot of positive commentary regarding that restriction. Of course, not all. I won't lie, but a lot of positive.
Councilman Thompson's up.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm open to the idea, but before I weigh in on either direction, I would like to hear from law enforcement in regards to the burden on law enforcement, to hear firsthand if it is such a burden, and kind of go from there.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. You have to understand, as a law enforcement officer, I'm here to enforce the law, and I try to stay out of politics. It's not really my lane. However, I will say that people being irresponsible with any incendiary device, to include fireworks, raises the potential of damage and is a major threat to public safety. I believe Mr. Ramsey is going to speak more about that later. However, I would just say that the police department will enforce the laws and support the council. However, I would like to say that any use of any type of firework, people should be responsible. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, what do we know? I mean, we have, I'm not sure if fire personnel are here, but you may know just historically regarding the calls for service during the 4th of July. I mean,
I can answer that easily.
I very much love America and love the celebration of our independence, but I think I just want to hear that. But and the cost of insurance and fire and is just insane.
Well, I can add that, as what happens for 4th of July, typically the fire department puts everybody on patrol and runs around the neighborhoods and just makes a presence to deal with it. It was a bigger problem 10 years back when everyone went to the city parks and private parking lots and created a mess afterwards. So
that still happens.
Well, it may still happen, but that's why we have the cleaning fee, that the city personnel go around with the street sweeper and clean up the debris and leftover stuff, both in the parking lots and in the city parks and that. The thing that I have to just give a comment to is it's a celebration, and it is. I've seen so many neighborhoods where you bring your box of fireworks, and then your neighbor brings their box over, and they sit in the middle of the street and they have a great time. And the neighborhoods is what I really see as a strong strength point. Realizing they're responsible families do a great job. And I really can't say that we've ever had any significant damage from Safe and Sane in terms of a house or house structure fire or loss or something like that. But again, it goes to, do we want to throw this down to responsible families and losing that effort to celebrate? I realize there's only one city here that doesn't sell, and that's Chico. Gridley, Biggs do sell Marysville sells, Yuba City sells, Willow sells. So there's a lot of potential that people could buy them in other cities and bring them here. That's a possibility too. So I just want to throw it out there. But from my experience in the fire service, it is just a very positive, common thing that I see neighborhoods getting together. And again, I hate to see it, the responsible families suffer from irresponsible activities. So yes, it is a problem that night. And yes, we should constrict people that violate the rules and violate the directions. You know, the directions of safe and sane are, if you follow them, there's generally not a problem. If you don't follow them, then there can be a problem with anything. But to answer your question, yeah, we all go on patrol and we spend the night, but I'm going to say we start heavy around in the evening, and pretty much by 10, 11 o'clock at night, we're all done. And that's been the normal experience. And each year is different. I mean, this year was significant. This is the first time that I can recall in 50 years that we ever held back the use of safe and sane. And I got to compliment the public in this community. They all held back and voluntarily reduced it considerably. I mean, that's clear. Then some of the vendors actually stopped sale voluntarily, at some cases at great expense. I'll also mention too that I'm aware that the vendors assisted with the process. So, and I don't know, you bring a good point. Maybe we should ask, you know, the nonprofits what effect would the 13 permits, you know, canceling would have. That's obviously a fair thing. I think I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Chief Tens just messaged me as well. He said this year they had only 3 calls for service, and typically, I know this is going to sound like a wide range, but he says typically years it does vary, but 10 to 40 calls per service. And I was asking, you know, what I mean, if they're injury related, a small fire related, I haven't heard back from them yet, but so it does vary quite a bit, I think, year by year.
Certainly varies by the weather and the conditions. Vice Mayor Smith is on the queue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, this is a much beloved American tradition, and it goes back hundreds of years, and people love it. However, community standards do change. People's values change over time. I don't know if we're there yet with this American tradition. I think it really belongs in the hands of our community to give us direction. Personally, given that the Chamber holds a $20,000 contract with Pyrotechnics to provide us a fireworks show that we could not have because of the fire, I asked our board, because we threw a lot of different ideas around and asking different groups what their thoughts were. Shall we do it on New Year's? Should we, you know, so we just tossed around a lot of different ideas. And ultimately, the Chamber Board came back, no, we're going to do it 2025, July 4th. That's tradition. So at least I know where my Chamber Board sits with that. And I think that we can do that responsibly. And of course, there's a lot of resources that are placed to that. And I think that's what's driving this conversation. We had an early fire season. And so is it responsible as a community where we're trying to do something safe and sane, although some might argue about the sanity part, can we, into the future, continue to, you know, engage in that tradition? And I can't answer that. But I think it's definitely a question and issue that we got to tackle as a community, you know, with the rising cost of energy. You know, we all know the issues that are at hand. I don't need to belabor it. But I certainly feel that we need to survey, we need to get a real good pulse from our community to give us direction, or to even put it on as a ballot, potentially, to ultimately come to that conclusion. You know, are we there yet? I don't know. Certainly it's a huge concern. And of course, public safety always trumps, you know, an event like that. And clearly, as the mayor eloquently pointed out, the folks complied beautifully. It was amazing as they withheld, you know, their enjoyment of that practice for the greater cause of ensuring that our, you know, fire professionals can deal with the safety issue that was happening, you know, people's lives and homes. But so that's where I stand. And then I have to say this, I apologize, but I have to bow out. I had given staff a heads up that I was going to have to leave. I thought I was going to have to leave earlier, but I was able to stay on a little bit later. So I'm going to give Kayla some indigestion because now she has to add me to some of those votes. But so that's my 2 cents on the matter, and thank you.
All right, thanks, sir. Councilman Weber's in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Ramsey, can I ask you a question? Because there's a rumor that's been, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, thank you very much. And thank you for being available to answer. So the Thompson Fire arson suspect, and I don't expect you to violate anything that you can't talk about, but was there insane fireworks involved in that?
Yes.
Okay, so that
morning, then it's July 2nd, that morning our suspect went to one of the local stands, picked up $7 worth of fireworks, the ground bloom type fireworks.
Oh, the ones that spin?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
spin and spark and flame, and used that to start the fire up on Cherokee Road that then ripped through Orville.
Man, that's so unfortunate. So, yeah, that's because I'd heard that many times, and I thought, well, you're here. I may as well ask because, so that is incredibly unfortunate because that lends to the conversation, right? You know, because somebody could, you know, potentially use that as a fuel to start a fire, right?
And it is not an unusual way for arsonists to start fires.
Mm-hmm.
It is convenient to use that in your car, throw it out the window, be gone.
Sure.
And that's what happened here.
Right. Yeah, that's horribly tragic, and because I know and then by the next day when we were serving at the Nazarene Church at the evacuation center, that there was murmurs of that going through the crowd. That's how it started. So it just is so unfortunate.
And just on that point, also you should know that the county of Butte does not allow Safe and Sane fireworks to either be sold or used, and that's why every year, the week before 4th of July, I put out the warning that, you can buy your Safe and Sane basically in Gridley and in Orville. Biggs is rather interesting because I haven't found a specific Biggs ordinance that allows it, but they seem to allow it. It's lost in history someplace. But Chico does not, Paradise does not, and the county does not. And so basically an arsonist came into the city of Orville, then went out into the county area, Cherokee Road, set off that firework and set off a very destructive fire and a very dangerous fire. That fire had gotten into the Kelly Ridge area, we would have lost lives.
Yeah.
It was only through an extraordinary effort by our firefighters that they were able to stop that fire.
Truly phenomenal. When just as a side note to your point, when I surveyed it from the air, when Honey invited me to go up and look at it, it was phenomenal to see how that fire threaded through those residents and how very little actually got affected. It was really, really phenomenal. So I mean, hats off to the responders because they prevented a disaster, literally.
Correct.
You know, so okay. Thank you very much for answering that because I just wanted clarification because you hear no, you hear yes, all that, right? So, Scott Thompson in his remarks were there being this history and tradition, right? And I love and Mr. Mayor your comments about how there is that community, right? That when you get together, 4th of July carries that weight of barbecue, traditionalism, fireworks, having fun, getting together. So I'm of the opinion that I would back up whatever the public says, right? And so I think that this is a conversation that should probably be given to our constituency and make it a ballot initiative and let them decide because I think that if I see you roll your eyes. Can we do that? I'm talking to you. Yeah.
I'm not rolling my eyes, but
well, you pondered at least at the.
You can certainly choose.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would do. My opinion is that we should give them the opportunity to vote on it and see what the city would say, because I did talk to TENS and I talked to LaGrone as well as far as calls to service, and you're correct. And what you just said is nominal. It's not a huge amount of calls to service, but in this particular case, what we have is this guy who clearly maliciously did this thing that caused I don't even know how much in financial hardship for all the folks that were affected, those 13 dwellings that were lost, and then all the, so that's my thoughts on it. I'm with you, Councilman Thompson. If I'd entertain it, but I think we should let our constituents weigh in on this.
Councilman Riggs?
Thank you. I also appreciate the celebratory neighborhood things. My neighbor Brian invites me over for fireworks and a Reaper float every 4th of July.
That's cool.
And it is so lovely. And he brings his grandsons with him. I love it. And I love our community gatherings. And I think that there's ways to create those even without fireworks. You know, there are barbecues and there are our community firework displays. And we create that at Salmon Festival and at Feather Fiesta Days. So although I recognize that neighborhood aspect and the coming together of safe families, I also recognize that for many of us, we spent 4th of July in a way that we absolutely didn't expect to spend it. Many of us had plans with family and with friends, and that was ripped from us. And aren't we fortunate that it was just plans that we're mourning and not the loss of lives and houses for ourselves? So for me, I feel like, yes, we can still create those opportunities. We can be more intentional about how that's created at the fireworks display as a whole. And create that environment where we get to celebrate our nation and celebrate our neighbors. And I think that we can do that without the sale or use of safe and sane fireworks. And then my last thing, I would be remiss to say that you mentioned offering to refund the cleaning fee. And I would also be in support of that. That's all.
Let me ask Carl, you're talking about refunding it today and not giving them credit for next year?
Yeah, because I don't want there to be sales next year.
Okay.
And because that money means more to those nonprofits now than
I
the
understood.
discount later.
Okay, thank you.
To me.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. The discussion on this one, I think, is very important, and to be honest, I'm conflicted on it because I am one who prides myself in standing up for the freedoms that we have as Americans, and it just seems like more and more the government encroaches in on said freedoms. At the same time, you know, with the issue, I mean, everybody knows. I mean, you go through and you're like, which fire was that? Yeah. You know, at what point does, you know, it's sad because, you know, you have the two sides of the pendulum. On one side is safety. The other side is freedom. And the more you go for safety, you know, you have to have, you know, some loss of freedom. I mean, you just speed limit by itself, you know, is, you say, well, you can't drive, you know, you should be, you know, a person should be self-governing to the degree that they would slow down in certain neighborhoods where there's school or kids present, or on Montgomery. But because of the fact that people are showing themselves, it just seems like on an increased rate to be less self-governing, then it necessitates at a certain degree governing bodies to step in where individuals, or even a minority of individuals, show that their lack of self-governing is affecting, you know, the population to the degree where we sacrifice some sense of freedom for the sake of safety for our community. You know, I do think that it's important for to hear from our constituents. I'm surprised there's not more people in the room to discuss this tonight, to be quite honest, because I think the 4th of July and the celebration of 4th of July and the celebration of fireworks and all that is a pretty big topic for our community. And again, so for me personally, right now as it stands, I'm not sure if this is something that is this an item that if we vote on, that we would bring back for a second reading?
Yeah, essentially, it was a discussion item, and with the action would be just give direction to staff on how you wish to proceed. If you wish to modify our ordinance or make any changes,
it sounds to me. I mean, I like I said when I first spoke, you know, on items like this, I want to hear from the people who, because I'm asleep in bed, I'm not out fighting fires on the 4th of July. New Year's Eve, people stay up until midnight. It's an interesting factoid. When I lived in Russia, I know I'm not a Russian operative, but when I did live in Russia, they don't start celebrating until midnight. So you're waiting around until midnight. We celebrate, and then midnight hits, and we're like, good night. But anyway, I honestly, personally, am willing to give direction to staff to move this to match the policies of our neighboring communities. And it seems like our district attorney is in favor of that. And given that, if a decision isn't concrete, poured this evening, that would give, I'm sure, our media outlets, enough time to sensationalize this so that those who are, we want our fireworks could show up at a future city council meeting. But again, for me, a big issue that I know is facing so many people all throughout Orville, whether you have, Mayor Pittman just showed me somebody that I think is in the audience still, has a modular home, insurance on their home at $11,000 per year.
Yeah.
Why is our insurance rates going up and up? Is because the amount of fires, and sadly a lot of these fires, not a lot, but many of them, recent ones, are arson. The one that just happened here, arson. The one that happened, in Chico, arson. So, again, it just pains me to lose freedom at the same time. At what point do we say enough is enough and the government steps in and brings more safety? So I'm open to make a motion.
We got some more.
But when it comes to,
right,
I'm
okay.
just saying I'm open to
Right,
make a motion that we go in that direction.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents.
Johnstone?
Thank you. I am really conflicted about this topic. I am all for safety, 100% safety of our entire county. However, what's to say that we do follow our neighbors and the arsonist from Cherokee goes to Biggs or goes to Gridley or goes to, one of the neighboring that do allow it, buys it and does the same thing. And we've already taken away the rights of people that do follow the laws. So I am really conflicted about this. I 100% agree with you, and you, but I enjoy it. And I think that it is a time-honored tradition to be able to do that. I love doing fireworks with my grandkids and my kids. And that, and the neighborhood comes to my house, so it's not something that I'm so readily willing to take away unless the majority votes for it. I want to do what's right, obviously. I want to be safe, but I also don't want our freedoms taken away. This is something that's very important to Orville. We have, many, 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 many years, we've had great, wonderful community fireworks displays, but we also enjoy doing the safe and sane for the people that follow the law, right? So I'm really conflicted on this. I feel like we should do an initiative or have the people of the community decide as well. So I'm not really sure what I would vote right now.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion and the conflict. A couple of questions I would ask, and I like Mr. Weber's suggestion that we have an initiative of the vote of the public. I would imagine it's probably too late to get it on this ballot.
Yes, it is.
And then, is this an issue that would be what would be the next ballot this issue would go to? If we were to ask the public for it.
2026.
2 years. Any election? Okay.
2 years from now.
I think so.
2026.
2 years? So it has to be a general election versus the primary election.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good information.
I spoke to a couple of council members on this topic over time, and I'm not sure how realistic this is, but I'll throw it out there. I know there was discussions about changing, because the fireworks are such a big deal for this community, and ideally it would be great to have those fireworks maybe move to a safer time of the year, like New Year's. I'm not sure what it would take to change. I mean, I just have to think that California as a whole, because this isn't unique to, the fires are not unique to,
right.
They may seem like they're unique to Butte County because we do have more than our fair share, but I'm wondering if over time this is going to be an issue that even the state looks at changing that health and safety code requirements. Because right now they're allowing it for a very small window, and I'm not sure if you have any chatter about any.
You're referring to the sale period, which is only 2
Yes,
weeks
I mean we
before
could
the 4th of July.
legislatively advocate for that change. Maybe they change the time frame to, instead of selling for the 4th of July, allow them to be sold for New Year's,
Right.
or a safer time of year where you know that there's going to be
Right.
just a
I
safer
mean, I
environment.
personally, I'm conflicted too, but at the same time, I think it's the public needs to weigh in on it. I don't think that, especially, yes, I understand that the individual caused the fire with the firework, but what if he just threw out a cigarette? Are we going to ban cigarettes?
Fires don't start from cigarettes.
Matchbooks, they do. Yeah, I mean, that's the bigger issue here. And do we want to take away that family celebration for something some irresponsible do? And I hope you prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Yeah, and that's my thing here is, do we want to penalize what Councilman Thompson says, the responsible families that do it right and follow the directions for one incident? I can't do that. But I think that we go down the path of giving this to the public. I would really encourage that. The one thing that we also have to look at is those folks that, well, we should talk to the vendors or the nonprofits that do this. I'm surprised there's none here tonight, but maybe with this discussion, they'll get them to come and at least let us know how and where they're at with this, because correct me if I'm wrong, but if they want to have permits for next year, I believe they have to start this process with the state this month. I don't know what that process is, but I know it has to start early.
It's not now, but it's a long process. I think it's more towards the end of the year, the
Yeah.
calendar year.
So I think that Councilman Riggs' motion to reimburse them the cleaning fee, I got no problem with that. I think that's fair, because we didn't have a cleanup. It didn't happen. So go down that path. We got a couple more questions here before we make a motion, though. Councilman Weber?
Yeah, just real briefly, just to kind of summarize my thoughts on all this. I just wrote down here that I'm not willing to take away somebody's choice with my vote on this. I'd much rather they decide, the public decide, and then I would support whatever they decided,
Right.
whatever way it went in, because I think this, to Councilmember Thompson's, that using your pendulum of responsibility, man, that's a really, really strong observation, because we do have a huge responsibility. But I just don't, for me personally, I don't want to lend my vote to that. I would much rather let the people decide.
Okay. Who's that? Councilman Thompson's back.
Thank you. Yeah. Last statement. I'm all in favor of having a ballot initiative. I'm also currently, just as we've been discussing that, and just, you just look at the hillside, it's all charred out. With the pain of the fires and the damage and the destruction, and the just the rising costs it is to live here because of all the fires, I'm open to not putting a ban, but a hiatus until a ballot initiative can be decided on by the community. So we are not necessarily, putting it in concrete, but we're saying, because of the, destruction and the charring and whatnot, is this something that you then at that point pause it and then have the community weigh in as for a long-term deal. So that's
Is
just
that a
an idea.
motion?
We have another person on the floor.
Councilman Johnston's in the queue.
I'm sorry, one last.
Yeah.
I'm 100% in agreement with doing a temporary hiatus. Would we be including our chamber fireworks in
No,
that?
no, no,
Right?
that's
So
completely
we're
separate.
Okay,
Yeah, that's-
so just the safe and
Public
sane
displays are a
individual.
different
Okay, then
permit,
I would be in agreement with the temporary until we could get it on an initiative and let the people vote.
Is that a,
I
is
would
that a motion?
second,
I'll
I
make
would
the
second that.
motion.
Mr. Mayor, I know
Yeah.
we have a couple folks that
I was
are,
going to say, we've got, I haven't even asked for cards yet, so we'll hold on to that.
Okay.
We may have some cards.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. We'll begin with Robert Fager and follow that with Bill Spear.
Well, I didn't realize when I came in I was going to have to come in and be ready for battle, but I do believe I am now. My name is Robert Fager. I am the commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars here in Oroville. The sale of California State Fire Marshal approved safe and sane fireworks in the city of Oroville has proven a lifeline to the VFW. The funds raised during each of the 4th of Julys have proven essential to the continued operation of the Oroville Post. We simply cannot keep up with the increased cost of maintaining the post by Pancakes Breakfast alone. Oroville Post 1747 has been serving veterans in Oroville for close to 100 years, and with fundraisers such as this, we will continue for another 100 years. This was going to be the end, not even close, and I'm glad I have 2 minutes. I'm hearing some really bad information being touted back and forth, and so I'm really hoping we can take a deep breath back and let's do some research and some facts. The facts are, I have been to the Oroville Fire Prevention Office on Nelson, and I've done my research. They do not, can't think of the word, safe and sane fireworks and the illegal fireworks coming across the border. When there's a firework fire or a firework injury, it's a firework injury, not safe and sane or the illegal ones coming across the border. They do not have any way to differentiate between the two. Safe and sane fireworks do not launch, they do not fly, they do not explode. Yes, somebody used one to start a fire outside the county. So those were illegal fireworks as soon as they hit the city limits, okay? So that was illegal already, okay? We've had arsons in this. Second arsonist in that fire was arrested with a propane tank up in Chico, blew up his mom's car. Last year, his office, Jamie Gorman, the arsonist who burned down the apartment buildings up on Table Mountain, used construction debris from a dumpster and a match. Okay? Now, should the construction company be held responsible because of the construction debris? No, not even. Okay? These 13 booths sell about $30,000 worth of fireworks each. Okay? That is money being spent. Now, that's not our profit. That is what's being sold retail. That is money that's not being pushed to coming out of the trunks of cars, okay? Those illegal ones. And I applaud you for those cases that you brought against the men who, I think it was at least 4 or 5 of them, with those mortars and extremely vicious fireworks. We need to really keep in mind, big difference. The illegal fireworks coming over the border, the safe and sane fireworks that we are able to legally sell. I know well, I'm going to ask. Don't be that idiot who can't tell the difference between a safe and sane firework and the illegal fireworks coming across the border in forms of mortars, grenades, and projectiles.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Bill Spear, followed by the cameraman.
Welcome, Bill.
City Council. I stand with the veteran guy there, and all the other nonprofits that make use that money to help them survive in this economy. I'd just like to say I'm real proud of our city. There was an issue and we canceled it. All the people, we were very responsible, and I think we as a city can be responsible enough to continue to have the safe and sane fireworks. People are accountable, they call in. We do very well, and this year also we did very well. there was issues and we canceled it. Everybody agreed. And I think we can, because of that, I think we can still continue to be responsible. We could say, okay, you can't smoke cigarettes, you're throwing them out. Nope, we're not going to do that. Oh, how about drinking? Drinking and alcohol. The fourth, it's right? We can eliminate the what about the Second Amendment? I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I believe in our Second Amendment. I believe it's number 2. First, freedom of speech, and then our Second Amendment for a reason that we have it. And so we have a lot of irresponsible people, and they continue to try to take away our rights because of other responsible people. Instead of taking the opportunity to be responsible and to follow the laws and to address the issues instead of taking away everybody's rights. We should not put this on hiatus. We should not kick it down the road. If you want to put it up for more discussion and get more people involved, then maybe have that discussion. But the safe and sane, it's been functioning in our city fine. We've been being responsible with it. When there was an issue, we dealt with it in a good way. We shouldn't let the good way that we deal with it wreck it for going forward. You can't take away the alcohol. People got to learn how to drink responsibly. You can't take away the guns. People need to learn how to use their guns responsible. You can't take away the fireworks. It's un-American. We are a constitutional republic, our city. We're not a nanny state. We look to the state. If the state of California lets you do it and Orville won't, that's a pretty sad state that we're in. Usually I'm not agreeing with nothing the state does, but here I would say if the state is letting us do it, we should do it while we can, because the way that we lose our rights, we got to fight for them when we can. We should have the right to, I was going to say party, but.
All right, thank you, sir. Who's up next?
Up next, we have the cameraman, followed by Mike Ramsey.
Okay, welcome.
Well, first off, I don't know what is more un-American than cutting veterans out of their pocket and their money. That's just wrong. Second off, insurance. Obviously my opponent here has an agenda here tonight. I don't know if fireworks hurt him when he was younger, but he obviously seems to have a strong stance against them. California, I don't know if you noticed, insurance companies are pulling out and they're coming up with schemes and gimmicks to discontinue your insurance. And now we're going to sit here and believe it's because of fireworks. And, well, I mean, that is it's a small percentage, but the real reason is piss poor forest management and $1 billion company that kills people with their negligence of failing to maintain their lines, and then puts an advertisement on TV and says, oh, we're undergrounding lines, and going into a neighborhood. There's a story out of Sacramento a few months ago, hundreds of lines in the lady's neighborhood, and they go and underground 0.4 feet of line, miles there. So it's going to take a big suit to get these insurance companies in line. But the point is, if the forest is mismanaged, that's, doesn't matter if I go and buy a safe and sane firework or not. If it's mismanaged, it's going to burn potentially. And here's the thing, if ban safe and sane fireworks, they're just going to find different ways. Cigarette in a matchbox, or if you're old enough to know what a mosquito coil is or play L.A. Noire, I'll just set that on fire and throw it in the field. It takes an hour to burn down. They're just going to find different ways. Mr. Wong was here. He owns a restaurant that sells alcohol. Somebody goes and buys a drink there, and they get drunk and they crash and kill somebody, or we're going to say, Mr. Wong, we got to shut down your business. We got to shut down all the restaurants and at bars in Oroville. And guess what? They're just going to go to a different city, go to a different bar in that city, and then that city's going to make money from their continued alcoholism and drinking and driving. But that's not the point. The point is they're going to find different ways to do it anyways. And if we just take it out on the majority, not only are we going to lose money from the revenue that these sales create, and other people are just going to go and spend their money elsewhere. This is American tradition. This is Oroville tradition. Okay, I don't know what Chico's problem is, but with all due respect to the people in Paradise, they're rich, old, and go to bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they don't celebrate 4th of July. And if they do, they go and take their RVs and their money and go to another state that has fireworks, like Florida, big stores where you can buy them, and go and party with their extended family. But the point is, this is at the very least something that people should be allowed to vote on if you're going to change it. But as the way I see it now, it should be, the orange should remain untouched. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mike Ramsey.
Thank you, council members. And is that on? Okay. I've given the information previously. Councilman Weber had asked. One other fact that not really been publicized, but the fireworks that were purchased here in Orville, $7 worth of fireworks cost $22 million. In fire work the firefighters had to do over those couple of days. We almost went into a Second Amendment argument here, and I see that, well, there is no Second Amendment for fireworks, folks. So I think Councilman Thompson's idea is well worth looking at, and specifically, that may bring the folks out, just like the veterans of foreign wars here, for you to make a decision. This will be your first reading of this, and make that decision, and bring people out to make that. I too am conflicted with this type of case. I grew up here in Orville. I grew up doing safe and sane fireworks. My children did. My grandchildren did. And we were disappointed when the fireworks show was canceled, because that has been a family tradition now for several years. So we're not talking about doing away with the community fireworks show. Absolutely not.
Right.
But what we're looking at is the possibilities, and the possibilities, even though minuscule, have huge consequences. So that's what we look at in terms of public safety. And that's my job as DA, is to take a look at public safety. It may be a buzzkill, and my grandchildren will be not happy with this, but that's for the larger aspect of protecting our citizens. I would urge you to go with Mr. Thompson's view on this. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Do we have any other cards?
That's all I have, sir.
I'm going to speak real quick. I think we have a number of items up here that have been brought forward to discuss, and it's been a great discussion. For our next council meeting, I'm suggesting that we kind of list those items for our next council meeting, and maybe that would encourage the public to walk in here and contribute their conversation, because the way it was agendized really didn't really talk about what we're talking about.
I agree with that.
You know, that way, we put the list on there, it'd be an agenda item, so the public can come and, you know.
We threaten them that we're going to take your fireworks away and have them come out so they can hear.
I don't want to go that far, but I think it's fair to say these are the items that we had in discussion. We have it as an agenda item, and then we can take action at that meeting with the contribution, because then people can send emails and respond. Because I've only had one email about this issue, and normally I have a lot more.
I've had
emails.
0.
Yeah, so let's light the fire. Let's hear more of the.
Wow.
If you understand what I'm saying, as a next agenda item.
We may have to, I mean, if the news does their part, you know, it might be possible that this chambers would not be big enough. Just
Well,
put
we
that
can
out
move it to a state theater. We have to. We got no problem with that.
But I just on a side note, just for those watching through space and those that are in the room, I haven't heard from anybody here that any council member, at least that census I've got, that anybody's looking at this with an agenda or a mind made up. It feels like most of us up here are
in conflict.
Definitely have.
Right, I agree. So I think if we schedule it for the next meeting with a little more detail on what's going to be discussed, and if we run that course, we run that course. And personally, I like the idea of an initiative, but that's just a personal issue, and I don't know if this body wants to do it or not. But Councilman Riggs is on the queue.
Thanks. There's been a lot of comments about, wanting an initiative or a ballot measure. We need to hear the public's voice. If it was adequately advertised and discussed and the opportunity for the public to come forward was presented as through a council meeting, like our next meeting, and we had a similar turnout, other than we'll naturally get maybe a few extra text messages and phone calls. Would this council be willing to take action without putting it as a ballot measure?
No.
Okay.
All right, good discussion. I would entertain, there was a discussion about a motion to reimburse the permittees, the cleaning fee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and second to do that. You understand the issue?
We still need to give direction for that, or?
We should give direction for it. I know Patrick's looking around, and I know he has some folks asking about it.
Yeah, we can't do that on our own. It would have to be council direction.
Okay. So I hear a motion, I hear a second, and let's call the roll.
Do we just need to give direction, or?
Yeah, direction to reimburse the cleaning fees.
I don't think we can vote. It's not an agenda item, but we can give direction.
We can give direction, yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Give direction.
All right.
Yeah. You have direction and by consensus. How's that? All right, folks. I appreciate you all coming and talking about it. I got a feeling our next meeting will be a little more violent. Never know, but that's okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just to make sure we get it on the agenda as requested. So the things I heard tonight were keep it as is, work to change the code and ban it, or
Ballot measure.
do a hiatus and then a ballot
Hiatus
measure.
and then
so those kind of are the three things.
Or a
that I
ballot
heard.
measure
Or a
too.
ballot, so that's four.
Or just
Four
put it on.
items, yeah.
Okay.
The hiatus.
Or keep
And the
it
ballot.
as it is,
As is.
Yeah.
with the potential for an initiative on
Ballot
ballot.
measure.
Right.
Okay.
I wish we had initiative available sooner. But we didn't know. Yes, sir.
Two. It seems like this will be a longer discussion, but I think it's good to have the, extra conversations about it.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. We don't have any more cards, correct? Just to make sure the public, all right. Thank you, sir. You bet. And thank you all for commenting on item number 8. Now, next item, number 9, is moving up. Oradam Cruisers Drive-In Movie Night at the Oroville Airport. Who has that item? Okay.
It's probably me.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention that was that they would like to do that. There's supposed to be a fly-in, I think, earlier that day between 8 and noon, and so they tried to time it on the same day. 2 different locations at the airport, though, so it's kind of like 2 separate events. But the idea is that Oroville Cruisers would like to do a drive-in movie that evening. I believe it's October 12th. For the public, and so we just need your approval to allow them to do that.
Councilman Johnstone?
Thank you. I am super excited for this. I think that it's going to be great marketing for our airport. I think that Oradam Cruisers does a fabulous job for community anyway, and I know that there was great success with the drive-in movie up in at the Chico Airport. So I am in 100% full support of this event.
Councilman Weber?
Yeah, I am equally excited. When Councilmember Johnstone initiated a conversation about this, and Sarah Nolan, who's here in the back, she is part of Oradam Cruisers, and she was having a conversation with Councilmember Johnstone about the success of the Chico event. And when this all got initiated, and then I was brought into the conversation, I was thrilled with the idea too, because I really like the idea of us doing something kind of, again, traditional, right? Like I grew up going to a drive-in. I'm sure we all did, right? And then, I would like to see an actual drive-in in Oroville if we could get that done somehow, but anyway, I'm super excited for this, and I'm completely ready to support this.
Any other council comments? Do we have any cards?
We did have one, Mr. Mayor, and that was from the cameraman, but I do see he just stepped out.
Okay. I would entertain a motion. That's all the conversation.
I would like to make a motion to authorize the drive-in movie night event with Oro Dam Cruisers to be held on Saturday, October 12th, 2024.
Call the roll, please.
Would you like for me to wait, sir, till Thompson gets back? Would you like me to mark him as absent for this?
We got a positive, but go ahead and, he's using the other room, so.
Okay,
I think we'll just move forward and just mark
perfect.
him
So
absent.
motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
You got us all. Go, Sarah.
I think this is for the, yeah, this one.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's this? All right. Next item is number 11. No, number 10, excuse me. Orville Police Department Public Information Officer position.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Put very simply, in this day and age, having someone to tell our story is paramount to any modern police agency. The Orville Police Department is seeking to implement a public information officer in order to properly communicate with our community, receive information from our community, disseminate emergency alerts, combat misinformation, help with recruiting, and a multitude of other media-related facets. So, again, folks, this position was budgeted for in the fiscal year. I believe we spoke about it at the executive meeting last week. I have passed out an updated salary schedule. The staff report that I submitted had the wrong salary schedule on that. I do apologize. Please see the attached one. That's the one that's highlighted in blue with the star next to it. And really, a public information officer, like I said, it's very important to get the right information pushed out. During the Thompson fire, the person we have at OPD who is currently acting in that capacity was pushing out information about evacuation zones. Recruiting is a huge asset of being a public information officer, and also, too, just really connecting with our citizens and rebuilding that trust and transparency. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Council, any questions?
No, not at all.
Nope.
That's great.
It's great.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Is this going to be in addition to what Khaleesi Riley does, or is this going to be something that she's going to do, or is this for her? Or?
So currently, right now, we have Miss Riley has been filling some of those duties. We are going to try and recruit for this position permanently, and then hire someone to really dedicate themselves to serving as a public information officer. Oh, and in addition to meeting those information needs for the police department, they would also serve the city and other departments, helping get the word out for public works or code enforcement or I guess finance too.
Yeah.
Sorry, this isn't more entertaining. I thought I'd save the fireworks.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Do we have any public cards on this?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. The cameraman.
Oh, thank you. Is my copy to keep, or?
No, it's just for the.
Oh, okay. Good evening again, Orville City Council. I guess my phone call missed the previous item, but I was in support of that anyways. It's really an idea. But the public information officer here, I'll be brief. This is kind of standard with most departments nowadays. It's not really fair to randomly stick a guy and say, hey, because these are the guys that are going to have to talk to me, to randomly say, hey, go talk to the cameraman. You're in charge of dealing with the media on this one, when there really is supposed to be a designated person to properly handle that. And it's just not, one of their jobs does entail talking to people like me, but like Jess said, passing out information about evacuation zones, events of the police department, speaking for the police department events. Mainly this is the person that is, going to be, your media person, your own sense, not so much media as a journalist, but the one that handles the distribution of information, events, all this little office work, the little pamphlet there, the yes. I mean, those don't magically appear themselves. Somebody's got to create that and make an actual ad. So, something I think our department needs, and it'll definitely help with communication. Because like when big events happen, like the Thompson fire or a more event that, definitely stepped up the level of who's in charge. But like when we had the Greyhound shooting 2022, that's something the press, the PIO would be immediately on, and they would be, communicating information as it becomes available to them that they're able to release, rather than, okay, are we going to figure out, is Mr. Ramsey going to do this? Is Chief Legron going to do? Who's going to be? No, actually, we'll have so and so do it, and then we'll turn it over to them. So there you go. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other cards?
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Entertaining a motion for this item.
I move that we approve the creation of the PIO.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. Number 11, award of contract, Montgomery Street resurfacing project.
That's mine. Am I allowed to speak to both 11 and 12 because they're very related? They're essentially it's the award of two separate contracts, both resurfacing contracts. The one on Montgomery is for resurfacing from Feather River Boulevard to just up to the roundabout, and then on Myers, it's from the convention center to Mitchell. And essentially, the project there was only one bid, or one company bid on both, and that was Pavement Coatings Company of Sacramento. For the amount of $778,906.05 for Montgomery, and $337,162.50. But then we would also like to incorporate about 10% for contingencies for in case there are changes, and generally there are. So these two items would just be to approve the award of those contracts.
Councilman Thompson has a question.
Thank you. Yeah, similar thing I said to SCORE, but regarding, have we looked at the pipes or done what do they call it, live scan of the pipes? Because the last thing that I like is when I get a brand new street or resurface or whatnot, then a year later having to dig it up because of unforeseen problems with
antiquated or
and I can get back to you on that. I do know Jamie's crew as far as sewer. I can't really speak to water. I think that's Cal Water in that area, so I'd have to follow up with them. But as far as sewer, they've been cleaning out, and they haven't approached me in any way, or Fred, I don't believe that any work is needed on those lines.
That would be my only, just if there's a way that we could look into the infrastructure below the streets before we put a nice top coat on it, just to...
I can answer the question on Montgomery Street. Cal Water's replaced the main, the entire length of Montgomery Street, so I wouldn't expect any water other than a particular house service. Myers Street, I'm not sure. I don't think we've done much work there lately, or as Cal Water has. I don't think so, but be good to check to make sure we're not going to have any conflicts. If they have planned work within a year or so, then it might be something to have done, as Councilman Thompson states. All right. Any other questions from council? Don't see anybody in the queue. Any comment cards?
None received, Mr. Mayor.
So
can I make a specific motion then?
You can make the motion. And
go ahead.
In your motion, would you include items 11 and 12? As the attorney says we could do that.
Do you want to do two separate votes?
Two separate.
I think we need to do two separate votes, but it was presented as one.
Person, okay. All right, thank you.
So I make a motion, but contingent that we scan the pipes in the street.
Sure.
Would that
Okay.
be?
And we can check with Cal Water too.
Well, check the
just to make sure
utilities.
they're on the project scheduled in the next.
Right.
Or like, when was the last time you checked the pipes on the
Right.
street?
Yeah.
You know, let's check them before we cap it.
Okay.
So make that, I make that
Second.
motion, yeah.
All right.
I second that.
Motion seconded. All, please call the roll.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Now, Councilman
Same-
Thompson, we're going to
yeah.
have you do for item number
Same-
12.
Same motion for item 12.
Okay.
Second.
Call the roll.
Is that clear, Mr. Ritchie?
All right, thank you. And item number 13 is a reappointment to the Housing Loan Advisory Committee of reappoint Chris Logue to the HLAC with a term ending September 3rd, 2026.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Chris Logue has been a previous committee member on this advisory board, and he is seeking reappointment for another 2-year term ending September 3rd, 2026.
Any comments or questions? Entertain a motion.
I move that we reappoint Chris Logue to the Housing Loan Advisory Committee.
Motion. Call the roll, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
All right. This is the second time for public communication hearing of non-agenda items. Any non-agenda item? Do we have any cards that came in?
I do not have any extra that came in, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Then future agenda items for this council. I'll make a motion that, or not a motion, but a comment that at the next council meeting, we do have some letters discussing Prop 36 and then the insurance issue. They'll be coming to the next council meeting, so for
Okay.
council to consider. Any correspondence? We have that in here, a postcard from Housing Authority, no flood notification, and the application for alcoholic beverage license. Seeing none, no comments. I will remind folks, I just received a letter from the Hmong New Year's Festival for 2024, 2025. We're all been invited. I'll make sure this is distributed. It'll be held on October 12th and 13th at the Nelson Sports Complex. So pencil that on your calendars.
Already
Upcoming.
have.
Already have. And with that, the meeting, I will call for adjournment. The regular meeting over the city council will be held September 17th, 2024 at 4 p.m.
Excellent.
We are adjourned, folks.
Thank you.